transmissions.
And hello, listeners. It's been a little bit since I've been able to get a episode. Today, we would like to welcome to the show Caleb Dyer. He is a good friend and also a former state representative of New Hampshire, and also a musician. And I will let you introduce the projects that you're in.
Actually right now I'm in my studio space where I kind of, we have our practices and things, and I can even show you around the room a little bit. We got a nice DW kit with 9000 series hardware because, we high rollers like that.
That's awesome.
Some amps and stuff, but yeah, this
loving
is
the acoustic foam, man. Seriously, it's what makes it livable in a sound room, man.
Oh, dude, we have that foam. I mean, it's not even super strategically placed. We just kind of like put some up on the walls just to deaden the room. But we need it because we have so many bands practicing in here. In fact, as I speak to you, I've got Mary Iguanas over there, which is going to practice in probably another few minutes. And it's going to get loud, I'm sure. And I'll have to like go to that corner of the room and get the hell away from them. But
yeah,
but it's great. And I
know
love
how it goes, man, for sure.
I love the guys who are here, and I understand like they didn't get to practice this week because of Christmas and the holidays and stuff, so they're doing it today because it was the day they had. So I get it.
Yep. But, no, I can relate. We snuck one in on Christmas Eve because we were. It's our day. It's the day that we practice. We were like,
it's like well, you got to do it. If you can do it, you got to do it. So, I'm personally, so my band, the band that I have that I'm kind of like the god emperor of, I guess, is called Big Nut. That's not the original name of the group, but that is, I believe, the name that we're going to be settling on. And it's very much a 70s kind of rock band. Like, like everything we play is like, if you listen to it, it's very much just that era. Like you can hear all of the inspiration.
That's awesome.
I told you beforehand, and I think you may have even heard some of the songs that I sent you.
Yeah, I did.
But I mean, you listen to the core of the band, and it's like, holy crap, that's like, I can hear the Steely Dan, I can hear the Rush, I can hear the Zeppelin, I can hear all this, and I just try to bring it together and make some really good music.
So I got a question. That's what you said to me, right? Yeah. That it was really funny because it reminded me of it reminds me of music from the 70s for sure. You couldn't have classified it any better. And I love that. That's my jam kind of stuff. Like I grew up like 90s kid, right? But I grew up listening to Zeppelin and exactly. Pink Floyd and
Man, I was born in 96, but like all of the music I listened to was like Grateful Dead, Deep Purple, because I'm an organ player, right? I play organ and keyboard, so I love like Yes, like bands like Yes that like no one my age even like knows is a band, and I'm listening to like Rick Wakeman like rip one on like I'm trying to think of a good song where he's got a solo. I can't think of a Yes song off the top of my head, but I mean, like, just like Deep Purple, John Lord ripping a solo on the Machine Head album, like where does it come from? And then the classical, I mean, it's amazing writing. And I'm saddened that like so few of my generation listen to that music for what it is, because they were doing something that no one else was doing at the time, like classical changes in cadences and rock and roll. What the hell, like that's just, it was so foreign to people, but it sold well and it did well. And I want to bring it back. So
I think that's awesome. I think it needs to come back because there needs to be more of those roots. And I mean, for me as a musician, like I spent, before Ambient Discord, just recently I was in, a metal band, which was a new realm to me because I've always wrote with an acoustic guitar. So, 4-chord songs for the most part. And that's kind of where I'm at now.
4 chords in the truth.
Yeah, exactly.
3 chords in the truth, 4 chords, add another chord. What's another?
It's right, man. I feel like, it's how I started learning to write music was as I self-taught. I don't know how to write music, classically or anything about music theory. I know a little bit. I guess I should give myself a little bit of credit, but I not, you know, I tuck my pinky when I play guitar, all kinds of bad music form habits that have given me an advantage to sound.
You sound like you.
I sound
You
like
sound
me.
like you.
That's right.
And that's what you should be going for, because
Yeah,
honestly, and I tell everyone this, is that music is not a game of one-upsmanship. It's not a game of I am better than this person. It's a game of I am better than me tomorrow than I was today.
that's right.
Right.
I You
And
couldn't have said it better, man. That is awesome.
well,
Actually, I
that's
really
that
like that.
I stole that from someone, another more famous musician than I, who's actually a very good friend. His name will be omitted. However, um, but yeah, you know, it's a universal thing. It's
Yeah,
universal truth. It's not about one-upsmanship. It's not about being better than another guy. It's about taking and learning from everyone and being you, being the best you can be.
it's crazy you said that because the time that I spent in a metal band, we played with a lot of metal bands, and I will never ever, you know, in any way trash on other bands, whether it's something like Daniel Johnston, which is just something raw and heartfelt and so raw to the point where some people consider it unlistenable. I love it personally because I can relate to it, but there's a lot of people in metal bands that would just never even consider that something that is acceptable as music to them, right? Because it
Yeah.
is in, and I'm not going to say metal is a one-upsmanship kind of thing, but there is a lot
Oh,
of that in
there's
it.
egos.
It's
There's egos in a lot of
big
music, man.
time,
And
big time.
I remember when I played with it was years ago. I played with a metal band towards the end of high school, and I played bass with these guys. And I mean, I was a pretty good bass player. Like, you know, I'm not a bass player principally. I'm a keyboard player, but I can also do that as well, and I'm very proficient. And I come in with my 5-string bass, and they were dealing previously with bass players who had like no fucking idea what a fifth string on a bass was, and like, right. And I'm like, I'm all of a sudden I'm using these lower strings to get a more full sound, doing chords, right? Stuff that in metal is like chords on bass. I mean, I know that it now exists. The better bands, I guess they are doing more of these kind of more full, big kind of sounds. But I mean, I was bringing this to the table for a metalcore band, composed of like 16 and 17-year-olds in like 2013. You know what I mean?
That's
So
great, man.
so like I I expose, and I try to do this all the time. I try to expose like people in different genres to the stuff that I play. Like on bass, I was at the time I was doing a lot of jazz, I was doing a lot of rock, and of course, that doesn't fit the genre, but I can show someone a run that I was doing in a jazz song and say, hey, I can probably use that in that song here, or use something very similar to it to, create a liaison between this part and that part. Or we can even turn it into a riff in the metal song. Like, if we take out some notes here, we can turn this into a more pentatonic sort of sounding riff, and we can use it to be a part of this song, right?
Right.
And we did some really, really cool things. Yeah, we did some really, really cool things where we took like lines inspired, like I'm trying to think of a run we did. I was doing something. I was analyzing like some saxophone solo by Coltrane or something like that, and he had some really great descending run that I was listening to. I don't even remember the song, but anyhow, I'm listening to this Coltrane saxophone like run down, and I'm thinking like, holy shit! If you take out like 4 notes in this whole run, you could create an amazing like descending like metal line. Like it was excellent, and we ended up using it in one of the songs. I don't know if it exists anywhere online anymore, but it was fantastic. It was like, I wish I could scat better, but like it was fantastic. It was basically just a minor pentatonic, but with some interesting third stuff going on, where it was like a major third instead of a minor third in the pentatonic. So it was great. But anyhow, I digress too much. It was getting a little
No,
bit
no, no,
off.
no. It's good to see
Yeah.
someone passionate about music. I mean, that's the thing for me, and I love as a musician, and I've tried to approach. I think almost every band I've been in is not necessarily like, okay, we're gonna be this type of band. We're gonna go into it just being like, let's make music, and whatever happens, happens.
Happens.
You know?
Yep. And that's what's so special. Like the shit, and I describe it as like the 70s transatlantic sound. We did not go in with the idea that we were going to recreate the 70s transatlantic sounds, right?
Yeah.
We went in with the ideas like, hey, we really like Steely Dan. We really, Donald Fagen, absolute
Yeah.
titan. You know, like we really like these guys and what they were doing. And we kind of want to capture that electric energy of like what those guys were doing in studio. And we want to do it in studio as well, and in create a product that's similarly inspired, but not the same.
Right. You take those
And yeah,
inspirations musically and you put them into yourself. Everything that you've been
exactly.
inspired as a music comes through you. And of course, it's going to kind of come out in
Right.
that
And
sound that you're influenced by, you know?
exactly. I was talking with someone the other day. I showed them one of the blues tunes that we have on this album that we're going to be putting out. And it's just a blues, just a straight blues. Very, you know, it's a quick blues. It's like it's just 1/4, 1/5, flat 6, 5 back to the 1/5 on the turnaround. Right, very simple blues. And it's kind of got a little bit of a heavy intro and a great fill that it comes in on. And someone who was listening to it said, that sounds exactly like China Grove, like exactly like, you know, Doobie Brothers, China Grove sort of like energy in the song. And I wasn't even going for that. I wasn't even trying. That was not at all what I was thinking. I was actually thinking more like Climax Blues Band is another band from the 70s that was excellent. They had a great song called Couldn't Get It Right. Go look it up. It was a number
Check
one
it
hit in
out.
'76. But anyhow,
Write it down.
yeah, Climax Blues Band, Couldn't Get It Right. Fantastic song. It's got a guitar saxophone, like guitar and saxophone solely together. It's such a I was more so for when I was writing that song. And then someone comes along and thinking like, I mean, like I can hear it now, but I did not go into it with that. I went into it thinking like, I want to emulate these blues bands of this era that no one knows about, right? Like, you know, they're literally either one-hit wonders or they were great bands that just, you know, never sold a whole lot of albums because, you know, they just weren't successful. But I'm trying to bring those influences, the ones that are just so out there, into it as well. And I'm glad that people are picking out the like Doobie Brothers, the lots of vocal harmonies that I plan to add to these things, right? And even like the Crosby, Stills, Nash references, that's more so like where I was getting those vocal harmonies from. But them hearing Doobie Brothers in it tells me that they're hearing the same stuff that I was, right? It tells me that they're at least in the same vein, right? So it's really cool to hear other people analyze your music and say, oh, I hear that in there, you know, I hear all this, right?
Yeah, no, I've definitely had that experience before where it's like, and they say something that you're not expecting, and that like, because all right, so funny, I am not a big, you know, newer metal kind of guy, but I like Chevelle, right? And somebody's like,
Okay.
hey, that sounds a lot like Chevelle, and I'm like, well, I don't hear that per se, but they are somewhat of an influence to me from a couple of songs. Probably not super known stuff because it's an earlier thing, but I heard them for a little time. I liked what I heard, and you know, it was a demo that was floating around back in, I don't know, late 90s, and I was, you know, she's 16, 15 or 16, and I just thought it was really cool. But anyway, long story short, that I was going on a tangent there.
Oh no, I was too.
Somebody,
Don't
it
worry.
kind of it sounded like something that I didn't hear myself, you know, but there's definitely some influences that are going to impact me from bands like that I, you know, and bands like Mudhoney and stuff that I think that, you know, just kind of come through me as a musician. But
Hey,
I
like,
just try to mix
yeah,
up whatever the influences are and let
I'm
it
not a
rip, you
metal
know?
player at all. Not at all. And I generally don't listen to Christian music, but August Burns Red, man, what a
Yeah.
band. And I
Yeah.
mean, like, not all eras. Not all eras of August Burns Red are particularly amazing in my humble opinion.
Sure.
However,
I agree.
some of that writing is especially the stuff that I was exposed to when I was playing with a metal band. And another band that's wicked fucking heavy, I the Breather. Holy shit. And then I went to a live show one time, saw Memphis Mayfire, and I was very impressed by their live performance and also their live sound. They're, you know, doing fantastic stuff. I saw at that same show with Memphis Mayfire, Silverstein. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
like, right,
Yeah.
like, you know, they're not like, I guess, metal, but they're a heavy band. You know,
Right. It was like that post-core kind of thing that was coming
yeah,
up, and
right.
because it wasn't quite emo it was at all. It wasn't quite post-core, but it was
but
heavier.
it was still very good writing. Still
Yeah, yeah,
very
yeah.
good writing. I wouldn't have bought the tickets to the show if it was, if it wasn't good
Sure,
writing. But
sure.
that's just,
There's certain bands like that you
yeah,
don't expect too, that kind of catch you off guard.
yeah.
And like Mastodon was one of those band that
Oh,
I
okay.
like. They're great,
Yep,
and but I
man.
was really blown away by their live performance. That was something
So,
that was really
so
amazing.
a random person in my life turned me on to the band Mastodon. My social studies teacher in high school, Mr. DiPrezito, who is also the guy who headed up the Model UN Club at my high school, turned me on to Mastodon
That's awesome.
in 2011, like my sophomore year or something like that. And he's like, I think you're really gonna like this band, man. he was like, he's just the chillest teacher ever.
That's
But
really awesome because they're really
yeah.
amazing band. I mean,
Oh yeah. Oh
they
dude,
knock it
just
out of the park.
yeah. Oh, absolutely killer musicians,
But
man. But
it's like time spent in a metal band. I'm not really a metal guy. I never really have been. And I mean, I like certain things like Killswitch, and I like Meshuggah and Tool and stuff kind of around the spectrum.
okay.
And I like certain
Yeah.
core bands that I grew up and I just kind of caught off guard. So I'm picky about what I like, you
Yeah.
know?
Oh,
Um,
everyone is. I mean,
but
like,
like there's so much stuff now that I don't know. I don't bands that I got to play with that were actually popular that I didn't know who they were. And they're like really big bands apparently, because my guitarist is like, you don't know who that is? I'm like, no, I don't know who they are. And I felt bad saying that, but like it's just like Veil of
yeah.
Maya, for example. We got to play with them on the Palladium stage, and I know who they are now, but I didn't know who they were then. And or I wrestled a bear once. We got to open for these bands, right? I did not who they know. I had no idea who they were because I listened to
Yeah.
like, like Zeppelin and
Right.
Marcy
Right.
Playground, and I don't know, man. It's all over the place, I guess, but
Yeah.
because I do
I mean,
listen to Psyopus and stuff. But
I have friends who listen to bands like I Wrestle a Bear once, but like I don't. That's not my shit. It's like
yeah,
hardly anything in those genres are the things that I listen to. I mean, again, I'm more like a rock guy, blues guy, jazz
sure.
guy, even, right?
Yeah,
And
can
that's
relate.
that's just always where I've gravitated towards. But I have friends who play those genres and do all that stuff, and man, I respect the hell out of it
Yeah,
because
me too.
I've played, I've even played it. You know what I mean? I've gone to the shows, I've been around the scenes, so I know it's an absolute grind to be bringing friggin', especially when your sound relies on 50 and 100-watt amps like cranked. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I hate that because my rigs and stuff, I play like 15-watt amps. Like I just recently got. I know. I just
it's funny
recently
because
got a 50-watt
we were
amp just
talking about
because
this.
I know. And I honest to God, I think a 15-watt amp cranked the shit out of it and saturated with gain. That sounds way better than a 50-watt amp doing the same thing. I mean,
Well, depends on what you're playing, but I agree
sure,
with you
yeah,
that
right,
it
yeah,
does provide that the same thing, especially if everything's mic'd up, right? I mean,
yeah, especially
if
if
it's
it's
all
all mic'd up.
same to me, I can
Yeah,
hear myself
exactly.
through the through the
Right,
monitor.
right.
That's good.
Right. Why am I bringing all of this gear with me if I can get away with literally bringing this and sounding just the same, if not bigger or better? Like it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is the trap that I guess a lot of musicians fall into. And I've even met a whole lot of musicians who seem to think that like, oh, just more watts is always the answer.
But yeah.
And then I show them my rig or I'll plug in and get this massive fucking sound. And they're like, what? You do that with a 15-watt amp?
Yeah.
What?
Well, like those
And it's
Mesa
just, it's
boogies
funny.
and stuff, like the old
Oh,
Mesas
dude,
that were,
dude.
those things
Oh.
can really crank out some sound,
So I know I was looking at an amp recently. So when I bought this 50-watt, the Paul Reed Smithson Zero, which is hopefully it's going to do everything I need it to do on the clean channel. I just need a high headroom, clean tube amp to fill out a stereo sound that I need a clean sound for. Therefore,
Sure.
I got a 50-watt amp. But I wouldn't have if I could have gotten something better for cheaper. But I did find a Mesa Boogie. I found a 25-watt, the Fillmore 25 from Mesa
Oh
Boogie.
yeah.
Holy
That's
shit!
awesome.
I was listening to the sound samples from that amp, right? And
Yeah.
this is how you have to do it. If you really you know what you want, you just gotta find someone who's playing like a humbucker guitar in my case, right? I
Yeah.
plan to mostly run it with humbuckers. So I found someone playing a humbucker guitar, playing through the amp on the clean channel. And the main problem is that it's a Mesa Boogie. And if you turn up the clean channel too much, it'll still, you'll still get power amp saturation,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Because
absolutely.
it's still a 25-watt amp,
Well,
which
is it
that's
a
my,
newer Mesa Boogie?
yeah, it's newer. Yeah.
Okay, okay. Well,
I mean, I
dude,
think the design came out a few years ago, but it's,
so
made
yeah, no,
still
anything
currently.
last like since like 99 or whatever is now like it's definitely got the combination of like the solid state hybrid or whatever. But if you go
Oh, no,
back to
no,
like
no, the Fillmore 25 is a straight up Class A tube amp. I'm
oh,
fairly
so
certain.
no,
Yeah,
okay.
no,
So I
none of,
honestly
yeah.
don't know the model specifically.
Yeah, it's
Um,
like they want like $1,500 or something for it or something
yeah.
crazy. It's a great amp. I mean, no,
So it's
nothing
not like the
against Mesa.
dual, it's not like the dual or the triple rec that have like,
No,
because
no, no.
those are like
It's a
full of
yeah.
electronics now, you
No,
know?
this is a 25-watt amp, two channels, right? Which is
Yeah,
usually you're not going to see a 25-watt amp with two channels unless
sure.
it's like, but I mean it's Mesa, so
Well, no,
they
I was gonna
they
say
make amazing stuff.
the old '90s ones that they have, and that's what I'm thinking of every time I say
Yeah.
like the 15 or 25 watt the
Oh yeah,
112,
yeah, yeah.
you
Oh,
know what I
I
mean,
know. Yeah, I know what you're
combo
talking
or
about. That
whatever.
yeah, the old combos and shit. The ones
Dude,
that
those
like the
things
surf rockers
crank.
played and shit. Oh yeah, those things are insane.
They're phenomenal. You mic
Absolutely
that
insane.
up, and that's what else do you need? You know,
But
I mean, I can't say that I run
right.
with something completely ridiculous compared to that, but it's overkill.
Those Mesa Boogie circuits from the 80s and 90s, those are really special circuits because
Yeah.
the guys in California that were building those things were really, really inspired at that
Hmm.
same time by, of course, the late great Alexander Dumble.
Yeah.
I mean, he, of course, Dumble was taking much bigger amps, 50 and 100-watt amps, and hot rodding the shit out of them, like, beefing up the transformers and just, doing crazy shit to these amps to squeeze every last, bit of power and the ability to move air in a speaker. But like the guys at Mesa were really, really inspired by that in like 80s and 90s, and they were designing those little combo amps pretty much in the same vein or same style with like an extra gain stage in the preamp that you could basically switch on. Same idea as Dumble had,
Yeah.
and man, absolutely, again, like you say, absolutely screaming amps. Like I don't understand how they ended up being like the tools of surf rockers, but the clean channels were great on them. So
Oh
in the
yeah, no,
right, yeah.
phenomenal. I mean, they do everything. You play, play metal with them.
Yep.
You do
And
anything with those
they
amps.
took pedals incredibly well. I mean,
Oh
shit,
yeah,
like especially the combos that didn't have the effects loops, or were just before like effects loops started to become like a common thing. A lot of amps in that era didn't really take pedals to the front well. That's why they came up with the whole concept of the effects loop, is like, oh, if we can buffer it after the preamp, right? We can get it to sound like it's just another part of the amp instead of adding gain and hiss and shit in front of the amp.
right.
However, this is the other thing, is that it also sounds different. So for instance, my whole rig, I am basically only running pedals through the front of my amps. The only exception to that is I have a digital reverb that I run in the effects loop of my
Oh, I was
single
gonna say,
channel
so you're
amp.
not running through the loop.
No, and it's because it sounds different. It actually doesn't
Yeah,
sound
no, I
authentic.
agree.
So for like the 70s stuff, for the stuff that all of the amps back then didn't have effects loops,
Yeah,
if you are running your drive pedal or whatever you have through the effects loop of your amplifier, it's not going to sound the same as if you're charging it in the front of the preamp. It's
right.
because it's happening at a different stage in the
Yeah,
amplify
definitely. I've
in the
noticed
chain.
that anytime I've changed it,
Yeah.
changed it up. So I'll only run like chorus, and there's a couple of things. I have a DSL JSM
Yeah,
super lean for the
I
overkill.
recommend. I always recommend, if people are trying to like emulate older sounds, never ever run your pedals through an effects loop. Never
Yeah,
do it. Always run it straight through the front, because and mic up whatever you have. Don't use cab sims,
for
especially
sure.
if you want that, because that's how you have to get that sound. It's not going to sound as good, or it's not going to sound the same, I should say.
So I'm wondering if I
Um,
change that. I have a small clone, like the old, in the '90s small clones, like well, late '80s small clones actually. Um, pedals, and I'm
Yeah.
running it
Oh, dude,
through.
I love electro harmonics. That's my shit, man.
They're great.
Yeah.
I am running that as looped right now through a loop on my Marshall. I have a
Okay. I
JSM.
actually, so while we're doing this, while I'm here, I've got to show you just some minor parts of my rig and whatnot. So I've got this. This is my drive
Ladies and
pedal.
gentlemen, it's gear time.
It is gear time.
It's
We're
gear
breaking
time.
out the gear. How is this centered? Okay, that's good. So this is the Flickinger Cranky Atom. This is a guy, I believe his name is Bob Flickinger, lives down in North Carolina. And he makes a bunch of different little like drives and boosts just out of his like house. And I've got a friend in North Carolina who is a friend of his. And for Christmas a few years ago, I received that pedal and I've been using it ever since. Probably it's not the best drive pedal I've ever used, but it's the one that is working for what I'm trying to do. And it's got a 3-band EQ in it, and that's basically all I really need out of it. And it's got really, really funny like things on here. The drive knob, so there's volume and drive, but the this thing says Halcyon, Caustic, and Bedlam for the for like the gain control, and it's just he's got like cool pedals, but it really does its job. It gives just enough gain in front of the preamp that it's really pushing those tubes hard.
Are you familiar with Joyo?
Joyo? Oh yeah. Joyo pedals, yeah.
Yeah. What do you think about their pedals?
I've not used many of them because I pretty much use electro harmonics and then just weird stuff. The only pedal I recently got, it's not even a pedal, it's just an ABY. I got an MXR 196, just an AB box.
Yeah.
But like, for example, like, I'm using like digital reverb because spring reverb, I mean, I could buy spring reverb and it would be fine and sound really great. But like digital reverb sounds just the same essentially. It's really not, and especially when it's buried, like that's really the only pedal that I'm running in the effects loop. When it's buried in the effects loop, you basically can't even tell. Like it's being buffered by a tube circuit in the in the effects loop.
Yeah, I've never been able to really tell the difference. I mean, I have what's it called there, tank reverb or whatever, and I don't really notice the difference between it's
also
just
I know also one of the problems that I've had with reverb tanks, specifically like I'm trying to think, Princeton reverbs, oh my god, but like spring reverb tanks and old amps, they just have a tendency to either break and fail, or if not break and fail, if you are really playing hard, sometimes the reverb can get really washy and kind of like interfere with your sound. So digital reverb in an effects loop can kind of help tame that reverb.
Yeah,
and try to get it to be just enough to add like a body to the sound, but not really be too much.
So if you're running the loop, that's better when you're running tank reverb.
At least I've found it to be better if you put reverb in that part of the chain of the amp, because believe it or not, that's actually more accurate to older amps, because older amps that had reverb had it within the amp, right? It was post preamp, right? So it makes total sense to run that particular effect in an effects loop or after the preamp, because that would be historically where it would have been in the amp anyhow.
So people are as divided as they've ever been on amps. Or they thought I was going to politics, but nope, we're back at amps. Solid state versus tube, that argument that they can people.
Oh, are you asking?
I'm like,
are you asking me about
I'm not
modeling amps?
I'm not at all, because in my opinion, I don't really think that people can tell the difference between the two if they're given the test. Actually, I've seen people that are mega like tube snobs just fail that test. They put the headphones on and they listen to it and they're like, I know the difference. And
so
they go up to a Kemper. I mean, Kemper's,
I know. So I tested myself. I tested myself on this once upon a time with a friend who had an AXFX unit, right? And AXFX was actually a New Hampshire company. I believe they were based out of Plastow.
Oh, no shit.
And yeah, right, like around the corner, basically. And anyhow, so I had a friend who had an AXFX 2 unit, the second one that came out. And he was saying, man, these things, like, you can literally dial in like a Marshall JCM 800 and it's
Yeah.
spot on.
Right.
And so, of course, we had a friend with an 800, and we did an A/B test in an ISO room, right? Because we just wanted to know. We wanted to know how good they were getting.
Flat EQ to flat EQ.
Yep, flat EQ, straight up, 12 o'clock, straight across the board.
Yeah.
Any of the parameters.
Same guitar, same everything.
Yep, same guitar. It was a humbucker guitar. I think it was my Much Les Paul, my Japanese lawsuit guitar that I was using. But anyhow, so we straight up A/B'd it with the AXFX unit, and I know that it's improbable, but all three of us, it was Jake Huggins, Adam Sharon, myself, all three of us were listening to these 2 amps A/B'd, and we're like, yep, with not even close, we could pick out which one was the tube amp. And the reason why we could is because an actual Marshall JCM 800 actually kind of, especially if it's just straight up, it sounds kind of bone dry. Believe it or not, it sounds really bone dry. The bass response is kind of like it's tight bass end, but it's not like there's no depth. And the AXFX, right, straight up everything, there's like, it's just very bassy, right? I have no idea where this bass was coming from in their modeling circuit, but like we could hear that it was just not.
Yeah, they're trying to warm. They're trying to make it sound more warm.
Right, and people probably want that, right? People probably do actually want that.
Yeah, but that's not flat EQ to flat EQ. You know what I mean?
No, it's not.
That's what the fuck? That's not really achieving what they're trying to achieve, because once you add in a different type of guitar, once you add in a different type of,
I've also done this with Kempers, right? I've also done this with Kempers and A/B'd some really, really great amps. Like I think we were doing a Bassman 70 or something like that.
I'd love to send you some links of some stuff with the Kempers and compare.
Oh yeah, they sound amazing.
I just mean it's guys in a room doing a double blind study, and
oh yeah, I'm sure they couldn't tell. I couldn't.
But it was headphones though, you know what I mean? They're doing a recording to a recording, so that's where I think it gets.
Yeah, if you're in the same room, it's way different.
That's the difference.
It is very different.
I agree,
but I will say the Kemper live to live, when I was fiddling around with the Kemper at a Guitar Center in Nashua, right? I was fiddling around with this Kemper that they had, and we A/B'd it with a vintage Bassman 70, right? 70-watt Bassman or whatever it was. One of the odd ones, one of the ones that was like designed to be a bass amp, but sounds great with guitar,
Right. Yeah.
And we were A/B'ing it the clean, just straight up the one input on the Bassman 70, and then we modeled it with the Kemper, right? Just plugged it straight in and tried to see how the Kemper would be able to model you playing through it and doing that.
Sure.
Because that was the selling function of the Kemper, right?
Yeah.
They could take the print. Yeah, it did great. I mean, shit. We played for, I think it was like 5 or 10 minutes or something like that, and then it took the model of the amp, and it took its time to process. I think it was like a couple minutes or whatever.
That's impressive.
Yeah, and then we plugged back into it, and then we hooked it up to an ABY, and we were going between the Kemper and a 410 cab, and between the actual 410 combo of the Bassman 70, right? And we're A/B'ing it, and we're like, damn, that's there, right. It was dead on.
It's amazing that type of really the dedication, I think, that to making solid state be a more accepted,
a viable choice.
Viable option. And that's it. Right. Viable option was the word I was looking for right there. Because that orange, I was telling you, baseline orange model, right?
Yep.
I was really, really impressed with that thing. It's so much that I bought it because it was
Oh,
cheap. It was very inexpensive. It was $200, I think, roughly. And it was so for $200, I could get the sound that I was looking for pretty
right.
easily as a backup amp. Like I use my Marshall, and again, 412. It's just because that
It's
it
the
keep
thing. Yeah.
without plugging it into an amp, it keeps up with the drum set, for the most part, and
Yeah.
I don't run into issues of being able to hear myself. But eventually, it's not really too much of an issue if you're plugging into a good PA system, and
Correct.
that
Yeah.
becomes unimportant. So
Yeah.
I think that and once you're not writing songs together and the songs are exactly the same, everybody's in tune, you can hear everything, and you get the decibel levels right. All things like that matter, obviously. But I guess what I'm getting at is that orange really blew me away for a really inexpensive um, solid state amp. I
Yeah,
was
dude.
really shocked by the
So the
distortion
guy,
at high
one of the
levels.
guys, right? One of the guys in Married Iguana, the band that's, I mean, they're kind of not practicing right now. They're kind of just shooting the shit. But
Yeah,
one of the guys in Married Iguana plays one of those little dark, not dark
the
terror, but
Dark Terror too.
the tiny
Tiny
terrors,
Terror.
right?
Okay,
He plays one of the tiny terrors with the, it's got the two pre, and I
these
believe
things are
it's
cool as
Class
hell.
D.
I
Yeah,
love
it's
them.
20 watts Class D amp.
Yep.
Really cool freaking amps, and I mean
Yep.
they get loud as shit for 20
Well, they
watts
they
Class
plug
D.
into a little power plug,
Yeah,
like a little DC plug in the
I
back.
know, I know.
It's like the
It's like a pedal. It's like
it
a
is. It's
pedal.
gonna plug. Yeah, I was
Yeah,
really like, okay, this is cool. As soon as I heard it through an amp, I was like, that's awesome. If it
yeah.
had two channels, I would have bought one. I that
Right,
I that was it.
right.
That I was gonna buy one, and I ended up going the solid state one that I got only because I had the two channel option, and then I don't have to worry about the same things that I worry about with the Marshall, the tank
Yeah.
reverb, carrying it
I
around. I don't want to
probably
balk for it.
if they had made one of those tiny terrors with two channels instead of
Yep,
just the single channel volume gain tone.
sold.
I know. If they had just made double channel and even like a tiny little piece of shit foot switch,
Don't
it
they
would have been
make
like,
one? Don't they
oh
make one? It's just a little bit more expensive. They make one that has two
no,
channels? No?
I don't think so. Not of the Terror
Oh
series, the Tiny
no.
Terror. I mean,
I thought they made a little tiny.
they
Oh,
make
I
like
don't know.
the 15-watt version that's
The
all tube of the
the
Terror
dark
series.
terror,
No,
right?
no, no, no. The Dark Terror was literally the same amp with a different preamp voicing or a
Okay,
different like tone control or something like that.
right, because it's
But
supposed to be for the metal.
the
Uh,
Terror 15 was a full-on tube amp.
okay.
It was attenuatable between I believe 15 and 7 watts. The only reason why I know this is because I was looking at buying perhaps an Orange years ago when I was looking at a 15-watt amp. I ended up settling on the Egnator Tweaker 15 because even though you can't attenuate it down to like 7 watts like the Terror 15 or whatever, it had more tonal options that I could
Yeah,
tap into. It had more preamp options that I could set the tone stack to different things and kind of model some of the older amps at a little bit of a lower wattage. So I ended up going with that, and I am very confident in that choice. It has never failed me. I've always been able to record what I need to with it and play live anywhere, you know.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I always have guitarists, right? I had this guy one time out in Gardner, Massachusetts. I was playing the Gardner Ale House. This one guy who was doing sound one night, he was a guitar player, and he was listening to me play a solo, and he was like, "Man, you're not that great, but your tone." I was like, "Yeah, I'm not a guitar player," and it was like, "But yeah, it sounds great, doesn't it?"
That's
And
awesome.
yeah, and it was such a great conversation. But yeah, man, like I love getting compliments from people who play guitar,
Well,
because I'm not
that's
the best
great.
guitar player in the world. I'm
Hey,
just a rhythm guy.
I think that's awesome though. The versatility piece
Yeah,
is really I always kind of find to be interesting which musicians have the want or the ability to play multiple instruments. Because I personally I can play a few, but not like it's not like I can just put my hands on an instrument and then within like 15 minutes have it down, which is like my guitarist and was the co-host of the show there, and will probably be here when he can, but it's still kind of up in the air as to what's going on. But his name's Justin, and great guitarist, but he could touch any instrument, and it's just no time.
Yeah,
You know,
just
he's
magical.
just magical.
Right.
He's just a banjo. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's dead down. I'm like,
Yeah.
come on, for real?
I know
Like,
I know some people who do that, and I've never understood it. Like I was able to take to guitar, right? But
yeah,
I just I still have a hard time even to this day thinking in the way, like, because on a piano, right, it's all linear, right? It's all
right.
up and down.
Yes, yeah,
It's all linear. So you can think of it that way. On a
right.
guitar, not only is it all linear, but it's also
It's like a
up and
grid.
down, up and
Yep.
across strings. So
Hmm.
you've got to think like, a pentatonically, you know,
Right.
whereas on a keyboard, it's,
If
you're
going down.
you're
Yes,
setting, or
yeah.
yeah, or you're going up. And you like you can play is, say, an A minor pentatonic in, on a fifth fret position, right? Right.
Right.
Or you can play it in the first position.
Yeah. Right. You've got the flexibility of kind of finding
Right.
wherever you are, octaves and all that.
Yeah, octaves and all those things. And it's kind of like, but again, those are exactly the same note. Right? Like those are exactly the same notes played in two different positions, but they have slightly different tonalities, right? The higher strings sound a little bit more bright and shiny, right? The lower strings have a little bit more bass response. So depending on exactly what you're playing, if you're playing like a lead, you might choose to play the same note. Like you can choose to play E here, or you can choose to play E here,
Right.
right?
Yep.
That's a big difference in how
Or
those two
even,
notes sound. Right.
at the,
Or
the open, top open E,
yeah, or you could play that
bottom,
same E,
rather.
that 12th fret E on the low E string. You can play that same exact E on the G string on the ninth fret, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, and I think the thing that, like, it's hard for me to translate from instrument to instrument a lot of times is that switching between, because so now I understand guitar way better than I understand keyboards. Keyboard doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. I mean, it does because I can figure out the flat notes and it makes sense, right? But it's just being able to do that, being able to navigate those
I get it.
scales. It's so
I
hard,
know.
and do it
I
right
know.
too. With
I
because you
get
gotta
it
do the
because,
thing with the thumb if you're playing correctly.
yeah, yeah,
So
exactly.
hard.
It's the technique is so very different from playing
Yeah.
a guitar, and that's fundamentally why I had such I have still, difficulties playing guitar. Like, I mean, people tell me that I do pretty well for myself, and I'm glad to receive any praise for an instrument that
Absolutely.
I
Hey, I'm
still admire.
primarily a guitar player, and you scale way better than I do. And
I
because
still fucked it up.
I've never played lead at all. And I think that's
Oh,
kind of not a not positive, but for me, I've never really been a guitarist. I mean, for me, I'm a vocalist and a writer.
yeah.
And I
So
use
rhythm is just, it
instruments.
comes natural. You
Well,
use your lead as your vocal.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
it. Right.
yeah.
I utilize the guitar as my bass line a lot of times as being my rhythm and a lot of power chords and a lot of that. So I'll write like chords, just regular chords, and then play the bass, the same thing, literally the same thing in power chords to just emphasize it. And I'll write a
Yeah,
song with only two parts, literally two chords for the whole
yeah,
song, and
yeah,
that's
dude.
it. But for
Dude,
me,
I have a
it's one of
song.
those things that it varies depending on what you're
I
writing. And
I have a song, and I probably already gave you the link to it, but it's literally like the whole verse is like two chords. It just drones on them. It's like,
right, but see,
that's two
stuff
chords.
like
That's it.
that's awesome. It gets stuck in your head,
I
and then
know, and
you're gonna have that riff stuck in your head for fucking days. You know what I mean?
right.
I love that.
And it's actually
That's
it's not even really two chords. I mean, it is two chords, but it's really just one chord. They're both C chords. It's a C major and a C minor 9.
yeah.
And those two chords together, it just gives you this weird kind of like off feeling. It's like you're not quite sure. It's some uncertainty, right? Because you're not really following kind of the
I'd love to
rules
get
of, like,
together and jam sometime, man.
oh yeah,
Just mess around, man, because I
oh
think that
absolutely,
we get along musically very well.
oh
Because
yeah,
I write very much in that way of like you want to get the feeling of the song. That's all that matters.
Oh yeah, you want to
Once you
encapsulate.
acquire
Yes.
that, you don't have to overdo it, because if you overdo it in your head, then you'll just lose the magic of it. You know what I mean? That's the other
Yep.
thing too. Trying to get it in the moment, and don't overthink it. Don't overdo it. Don't like, oh, I should make it more complex here and there. If it turns out that way, then great, but
Right. Yeah.
for me, I've always kind of struggled with that a little bit, because I felt like I should be a more of a complex musician than
Eh,
especially where I've been playing since I was
Listen, if
18,
if
you
if
know?
simple works, if simple works, simple works.
Right.
Right. I was doing so it's actually it's a more complex song, but I simplified the chorus to it a little bit because it was too out there. It was not fulfilling the intent of the song. So to do a demonstration, right? It's a song called Dougie the Breakfast Man, and the lyrics do not fit at all with the title Dougie the Breakfast Man, but I'll share it with you at some point. But it's in the key of C sharp minor. Starts off on, goes to an A major 7 with this beautiful open voicing, right? Down to
Yeah.
an F minor 7 with this beautiful open voicing, and to a D major 7, and then back. So it's got this.
It sounds really, you know what it reminds me of? Oh God, what is that band?
Right, and then the
I can't think
chorus.
of it. It totally reminds me of something that's. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
But no, not at all, man. But anyhow, the chorus originally just is a chromatic descension from the E major 7, E flat minor 7, D major 7, and right back to that C sharp minor 7. Right. So
So
it's a chromatic. Right.
do you think music
Yep.
is a
Yes.
communicator,
Absolutely. It's a language.
like mathematics? So mathematics being a language. I mean, really one of the only universal languages, right? Or could you say, do you think that music is a universal
Yeah,
language?
I mean, music is very mathematical, right? I
Yeah.
mean, right down to the fact that every note has a frequency, right?
Right.
A value in hertz that you can represent it time immemorial. Even microtonal stuff, right? Even notes in between the notes of Western music have their own frequencies.
Well,
And yeah, and also we play in an artificial temperament anyhow, right? We already play in a, within a set of constructed rules that we have made in Western music. We tune to 440A, right? And
yeah.
we play with even temperament because it sounds way better than if we didn't play with uneven temperament, right? If we
Yeah. Yeah.
played, I've heard some
Well,
people.
discordancies and
Yeah, and discordancies and stuff like that. Adam Neely, who's an excellent YouTuber, has a great video on temperament and tonality and stuff like that. But music is absolutely a language. It's a mathematical communicator. And
So,
all your, yeah,
oh no.
yeah, go ahead.
The reason why I asked that, it's just because when you were playing that, it made me think of I guess I was talking to you about like jamming, right? Because you
Mhm.
just get that feeling that that you probably connect with somebody musically.
Yeah.
And I was a stone thought for sure. But
Hey,
it
listen,
was
listen.
it
I'm
led
also
me
there. So.
it led me to the thought process that you're right. It's rooted in mathematics, but what if, because
But that's just
apes
how you
can't
describe
understand
it.
music, right?
Yeah, that's just how you describe it. The mathematical element is just how you communicate that to other people, right?
Sure.
The
But
language itself, the actual playing of the instrument, the actual sounds,
yeah.
that goes beyond the math. The math is just the way that you describe it.
So do you
And
think
and
it's
and
more than just harmony too? Do you think that there's like this connection? Because you could see this
there are
with free
three
form jazz
there
players that do
yeah,
not know what each other are going to do, but then they just fucking figure it in
there
timing anyway.
there are
It's
only
almost like
three
harmonic
parts.
thinking, you know?
There are only three parts in any piece of music, and these are what they are: melody, rhythm. Melody, harmony, and rhythm. That's it. Any song. Those three things, they exist in any musical work. Even in works that don't have any percussion, still have rhythm, right? Even works that are solo voices still have implied harmonies, right? So all of these things, all of these pieces of art and pieces of music that are created, they all have these elements that can be added into them, and you can strip some of them away but you're still left with like the implication that, you know, even if you're singing a vocal line, you're still singing it to a particular time, right? You're not just singing it, even if you're singing it out of time, right? Rubato's a thing, you know what I mean? We have words to describe something that's played out of time.
Sure.
So it's like,
well, I think that because there's chaos in music, right? And there's chaos in our existence as human beings. And I guess that's where I'm going with this, is that it kind of shifts gears a little bit from the music thing to like the communication aspect of human beings, extraterrestrial life, whatever it may be. Our ability to understand music may be limited to us, right? Not to machines. Machines obviously get it. AI can write music.
we're getting
but like
But we
apes
create better
can't
music.
understand music. Certain animals can't understand music, but there's a level of intelligence there, right? Some human beings can't actually understand music. They
have
can't hear music, right?
Right.
There's a condition in which their brains can't understand the information that they're receiving.
Or it just sounds all weird to them.
Right. It doesn't sound harmonized or anything. It sounds like a jumble mess. Yeah, discordant. And it just makes me wonder, you know, how our consciousness impacts music, and how our consciousness impacts the same. You know how they're saying that consciousness could be a product of our outlook, our own perception. Like we're creating consciousness as we're moving through it. The same thing would happen with music, right? I mean, especially when people are writing music together and you've got that feeling, and every musician knows that feeling. I can say it, if you're listening out there and you're a musician, you know what I'm talking about right now. That feeling when everybody looks at each other and they're just in that moment, or not everybody looks at each other. They just, everybody.
Or they're each into themselves, but they're each grooving, you know, they're each in the pocket, right?
But
and
you also know that everybody else is feeling it too, right? It's this kind of unsaid thing. Whether you look at each other or not, or you're focused on your own shit, you just like, this is an awesome part of the song, or this is going really good in the writing process. Free form writing, whether it's that or you're writing by parts. We
were writing. So one of the songs on that Crash Stranded album that I hope to, I mean, it's going to be still a year yet until it ends up getting released, but we were recording that. I don't know how well this is coming over on the.
It's not.
Probably not well. Yeah, not well. Yeah, I don't really want to plug it in, but it's that song, The Navigator.
It was, but I can hear them. They're starting up close by or whatever. So it makes it harder to hear your guitar. So
can you still hear my voice though?
I can. I mean, it's coming through a little hard.
Is there stuff really? Yeah, hold on.
Yeah, I mean, it's not horrific, but if you move probably like, I don't know, 20 feet, 50 feet away from it, probably.
I am already like
as far
good distance away. I'm already a good distance away from them. However, shit.
I mean, luckily filters and stuff can help a lot of that stuff, because the magic. Oh, boom! Already better.
Yeah, I'm around the corner now, but I kind of am gonna have.
Oh yeah, no, dude, your acoustic foam's doing its job, my friend.
Oh yeah,
I mean, of course, I know. Of course, you're gonna pick it up in the background, right? I'm gonna get some of it, transferred, but it's not as bad. Yeah, and then you can see where that edge of the foam does a really good job there.
Yes, it's doing okay. It could be better though. Hold on, let me.
Oh sure.
Get my chair.
It's probably not as good for you as it is for us. You've got a built-in filter and all that stuff. Oh, that's sweet. You gotta buy us breakfast after all.
All right.
Take us out for a steak dinner.
I am back, and I have a light behind me, so I look like holy.
As long as it's great, because it's like right behind your behind your head. So let's definitely. I want to shift gears to the thing we were talking about how music could be a communicator, but mathematics definitely a communicator.
Yes.
So do you think that's our only way to communicate with
communicating music theory mathematically? Like, you think that's the only way? Like, or is
Extraterrestrials?
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So, like, I mean, obviously, there's that famous scene from the what's that movie? Close Encounters of the Third Kind, where they use.
I didn't even think of that. Holy crap!
Where they use the key. where they use the keyboard to communicate with the alien life, right?
Yes.
And I've loved that movie. There's another movie about aliens that I've been thinking about recently because the song "The Navigator" is actually titled after the movie, "The Flight of the Navigator."
Yeah.
And again, fantastic movie from the 80s.
Awesome movie. If you haven't seen it, watch it.
Awesome movie. If anyone is listening and hasn't seen it, you freaking need to.
Yes.
But like this little kid is like inhabited by an alien or something. You're like, it's kind of ambiguous as to exactly what's going on because they don't really tell you, but it's kind of just implied. But again, fantastic movie. I'm not going to spoil too much of it. But
well, no, listen, hey, there's some people out there that might not. We have a few listeners that's maybe an American thing. We got a few people outside of the United States that listen to us, and I found it kind of interesting that that there's a discussion I heard just recently about how a lot of times like movie culture is so vastly different depending on where you are in the world, right? And that Flight of the Navigator is just one of those things from my childhood. Definitely, and most friends that I talk to, they remember that movie very well.
Good. It was such
like
a good movie.
The silver football, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's what everybody remembers.
The silver football movie.
But I love that movie so much. But it's good that you brought that up because I was thinking about that type of concept the other day about like time and how if it's confusing to me if we're being visited by extraterrestrials, right? And I've been a hard people blah 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 about the extraterrestrials. I talk a lot about aliens as of recently because it's something that's really engaged me as a former skeptic, and not against extraterrestrials. I believe in extraterrestrial life. It's impossible for it to not exist other than us.
Right. I mean, Sagan. Yeah, exactly. Sagan was correct that, I mean, the probability of life existing elsewhere is like 100%. It exists somewhere out there. It's just a matter of us contacting it and remaining in contact.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's just a matter of us contacting it and staying in contact.
So, well, and I guess that's the thing that really gets me now in light of recent news. Like, we can almost guarantee that something is visiting our planet that's beyond our capabilities with physics. I mean, I don't know whether they're aliens.
Not necessarily that they're visiting like currently, but like that it is theoretically possible if we can go into outer space.
No. I mean, like the Pentagon has released evidence and the CIA has released evidence, and pretty much the whole world is. You know what I'm talking about?
I don't own a wall screen, so I don't really listen to a whole lot of news or any of that. But I've caught like by wind of friends that Donald, like, it's like the executive branch knows that there is alien life out there and that we have made contact with it.
Well, so I'm not even really. I mean, so Donald Trump, he doesn't even like, even with all of the shit he says, he like, I don't really believe it, and then all of a sudden, Space Force was like a thing overnight, right?
Right.
What gets me is the other countries that now, if you really dig in, you step outside of your own VPN, for example, into another country, and you start digging in, the information you get is vastly different than the information we get here. Yeah. So the rest of the world's pretty like, everybody's like, aliens, where have you guys been? You guys are asleep at the fucking wheel. That's what I feel. The feeling I get when I look online and I do any type of research or reading is, where the fuck have you been? Are you guys asleep at the wheel? We're obviously being visited by something, and your American asses are just now getting the memo. That's the impression that I get from the rest of the world when I go online with a different VPN, and I'm just like,
yeah. Well, I mean, it's like,
what do you think? Do you think they're actually what's going on?
Governments conceal lots of information from people, even if that information is kind of innocuous or harmless. Like, it's kind of weird, like the extent to which information will be concealed by governments internationally for no other, like literally no other reason than just like, it's not advantageous for us to release this, right?
So like, yeah, no, I think that's true, but at the same time, it's not advantageous for them to release it. It's not advantageous for them to release it yet. And
Right,
that's
right,
where
right.
we're at right now, I think. And if you do any type of like conspiracy theory digging, which I try to steer away from because it's all rooted in shit, there's always
I
some
mean,
sort of
I don't, I like,
fact
yeah,
in the
I don't
fiction.
own
You
a
know what I'm
wall
saying?
screen. I don't own a wall screen, and
Yeah,
basically the only interaction that I have with other people is like talking to
the
them in
internet.
person, or yeah, or the internet. And I try to like limit my internet usage, especially as of late, because holy shit, the psychological warfare has been getting intense. I don't
Oh,
know
it's
if you've
bad.
yeah,
Absolutely.
I don't know if you noticed it, but I mean, like, holy shit,
Oh yeah,
I
my
noticed it.
Facebook usage has
I know,
decreased
I
fucking
noticed it
70% in the
earlier this
last year
year.
and a half.
Yep, I noticed it earlier this year, and I'm like, holy shit, they're really ramping it up, and I just didn't want any part of it. I just kind of wanted to do my own thing. I've been trying to play music and just,
Yeah.
not deal with the world as much as I can.
So, I mean, I guess, see, here's my thing with the social media thing. I'll just go ahead and post my. I used to get engaged with shit, and sometimes I will still, but very rarely now because I just don't have the time or mental capacity for it anymore. I'll post my thought, my information, and blah, 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 and drop it and let the internet weed itself out. The comment section will figure itself out, and I just don't give a fuck anymore about it because I don't really have. There's not a stake in it for me anymore. I just don't give a fuck. At this point,
It's getting harder.
there's nothing there. It's all just people screaming in the goddamn ether about how they're set up about they're upset about their political side. And what matters to me is like real solutions to real problems, people talking together, no echo chambers, right? We can argue at each other, but we can also have conversations that are more
Man,
productive than slamming it away at binary code, and
you know,
expecting the other person to get a completely, representative idea of what you mean.
one of the reasons why I'm so content with my decision to have committed political suicide is because I saw that the legislature of this state literally was becoming the cesspool that is like social media. Literally, the
Yeah,
level of discourse
just
that
dividing.
yeah, well, actually, that too, but I mean that was part of it, but also the level of discourse that was actually going on in the legislature
Oh
between
wow.
both Republicans and Democrats was dropping to such a low level, right? And mind you, again, I'm also fairly young. I'm 24. I'm going to be 25 next year, right? And I was elected at 20, right? So I'm like a 21, 22-year-old that, a few years out of high school, but I expected that the discussions in the legislature would be far more robust, right, and engaging
Yeah,
than what I ended up finding there. It ended up being just like basically like high school 2.0, man.
right,
Like
right. You've got your side and you follow the
you've got your
party
tribe.
line.
Yeah, you've got your tribe and right,
Ugh.
exactly. You've got your tribe and you sit down, shut up, and push the fucking button,
Yep,
right?
that's
And
right.
it disgusted me, and evidently, and I've spoken with members of the federal Congress, right? Like evidently the same shit goes on in
Oh,
Washington.
absolutely.
It's just worse than it was
I,
in New
I
Hampshire.
listened to a podcast recently with Justin Amash and
Oh
Andrew
yeah,
Yang. It was
yeah.
incredibly engaging podcast between uh, Justin and Andrew Yang. And although I don't agree with either of them 100% on their politics, I do both. I like both of them, and I would vote for both of them as president. They're not at all on the same standpoint, but for me, there's some things that I value in both of them, but we're not going to get too far into
Oh
that
yeah.
the
No,
UBI
I mean
discussion yet.
they're both pretty smart. I mean, I've only spoken with one of the two of those guys, but
Yeah,
like
same.
I've never met Andrew. I had opportunities obviously when I was up
Yeah,
around in New Hampshire, but
sure.
I never met Andrew. But still, I mean, like they're clearly both pretty intelligent. I think they're both wrong on some very major things, but
Yeah, me
but
too,
like
actually.
and I mean shit, I'm a member of Justin's, the same party that Justin is, right?
Yeah,
And we
me
even
too. I'm a
have some
libertarian as
disagreements.
well,
Yeah.
and it's tough because I straddle that line between left-leaning libertarian and just kind of middle of the road libertarian, and
So
only on a couple of
yeah.
things, right? Definitely not guns.
Yeah,
uh,
right. I mean, you strike me as fairly like like almost like me, like very
yep,
typical like New Hampshire dude. Like I
yep.
don't know.
That's it. That's
Like
it.
we either socially just don't give a damn and like please leave us alone. Like
Yeah, right, right.
yeah,
I don't want to be bothered by my government. And I feel like
right,
if
right.
we were talking about before we got on to this conversation, um, we were talking about um,
well, we started kind of
when we
with
started
aliens,
talking
then
about getting
social
into the
media.
social program thing,
Yeah,
so I'm
yeah,
on disability, right? And I
yeah.
have a major issue for even, and there may be some listeners out there that haven't heard this before because we've gained new people since we started YouTube. And although it's not many, most of our listeners are audio listeners from before we were doing it in person. Um, they may know, obviously I have a walking disability, and it's become increasingly difficult for me to walk. And with that, my job industry, I was in the appliance industry for 10 years, for a decade, selling appliances. And large appliances now have gone the way of, well, the dinosaur when you're buying from somebody. So you're buying for a computer if you go to buy an appliance, pretty much for the most part now, unless you
Mhm.
buy in person at a Barron's or a Agrin in Maine, or a, you know, Jesus, I can't even think of their name, down in Mass in Boston. Um, they're like the biggest independent retailer in Boston for appliances. But regardless, I'm going into a tangent again. I am living off of social programs. So being libertarian, a lot of times I get that, like, those two things conflict. And I don't
I,
like relying on systems. And we were talking about this before
yeah.
with the discussion about, Jesus, sorry, I'm getting, I want to go get back to this, but um, social programs for me are very limited on what they do for people, because you have the problem, the disconnect when it comes to food stamps, any type of welfare program that you're
Right.
getting. You have to go in person, you have to fill out the paperwork, and that's a task for people with anxiety or
Yeah.
autism or all
Yep.
these different neurotypical disorders. For me, I'm ADHD in
Filling
functioning at
out
a
paperwork.
mid-level, but
Yeah, filling out paperwork is probably the last thing that you know,
it's the
like.
worst. I'm terrible at it, and because I procrastinate, everything falls apart. I beat myself up. Then comes a depression about it. It's just this awful cycle. And for me, like, I have no problem getting through it. I've always been good at, like, I managed an entire territory for Samsung Home Appliances for 4 years. I can manage
Well,
to get some
yeah, right.
paperwork into DHHS, but I think about the people who can't. I think about
Yeah.
my wife who died because the system fucking failed. The mental health system that's supposed to be there to keep people alive, to keep people going, failed. And of course, we're
Abjectly.
all
Yeah.
very, very responsible for ourselves. And I am in the belief of individualism to an extent. I don't believe in collectivism, but I do believe that if there are going to be social programs that we're gonna gun against our fucking head to basically pay for, they better
That they
fucking
should.
work.
Right. They should achieve the stated intent.
So
Right.
fuck all that. They should just give me $1,000 a month. I don't want any of the other bullshit. I want my money back in taxes. Milton Friedman knew what he was
Yeah.
talking about. Negative income tax would have worked. Maybe not
So
UBI, but a negative income tax. They could start paying
I
us the fuck back. Sorry.
I get it, man.
Go.
I get it. And I've read the Friedman. I mean, obviously, I'm a good libertarian boy, right? I've read my negative income tax Friedman,
I read my
arguments and all those
Friedman
things.
and my Ayn Rand. I did
No,
my due diligence.
I am not a huge Rand fan, believe it or not. But
I am to an extent, but
so I love Rush and I love the album 2112, obviously. Like
Yeah.
I mean, I love the Fountainhead
Yeah.
imagery and stuff. So I've read Ayn Rand, right? I know all of that too. I'm just not a huge fan of her as a person because she said some things, and also she just
and she could say fuck all about AI, dude, right? Her brain would fucking not compute with that shit. And that's the thing that bothers me with libertarians is it's like they hold her up on a goddamn pedestal, and that's fine, but AI exists now. And her idea of flights of fancy, she'd say, about sci-fi, right? Well, sci-fi is science fact now. So Ayn Rand knew her asshole from her elbow. Like, she didn't know this was going to happen. And although she had some really good perspectives, and I do value them, I do not value them, to be the same as Marxism in any way. But
exactly.
I could read Marx and her, and I could go, they're both flawed in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. And I mean, I'm constantly in refining my own political philosophy and all of those things too. So I'm constantly reading more. But with regards to like what you said about social programs, just to touch back on that, right?
Good, because I would have forgotten.
Yeah, I understand, man. I get it. I get, and I mentioned to you that a dear friend of mine, Daryl Perry, right, who was the gubernatorial nominee for the Libertarian Party in 2020.
Yeah.
He recently suffered a stroke, and and this is kind of an ongoing problem for him, but he's been on disability for, I believe, over a year now. But prior to that, he was running marathons. He had lost a lot of weight.
Yeah,
he was doing very well. And then he tripped at a marathon, hit his head, and ended up with brain damage and some serious lasting problems. I mean, just literally the worst damn stroke of luck that I've ever seen in any of my friends. But again, he's an awesome dude. He's definitely worthy of your support. But being on disability makes just his life so much harder, not only for himself and his own principles, right? But it makes it so much harder for him to even get a job. Right, because people now they're stigmatized against him, like, oh, he's got brain damage, he's going to be able to do this job, right? This condescending sort of attitude.
Yep,
and it's
absolutely.
Like he's right. You're right. He's a smart man, and he's hit some really shit times, and now these social programs which are allegedly designed to assist him, to help him, are now making his life much more complicated and much more difficult. Even though there might be marginal benefit, he questions all the time, is this actually worth it? And I get it. I wish there was a better way. I personally don't think that there's any way that states can administer systems of welfare that would ever result in a net benefit to the individual. I really don't. The only places on earth.
It all comes down to like voluntarism versus.
It all comes down to mutual aid. I mean, the left prefers to call it mutual aid. The right prefers to call it voluntarism. I really don't give a damn what you call it. I mean, be good to other people. It's the same
fucking thing.
Right. Be good to other people. How hard is that? And I mean, shit. Like I learned recently that a friend of mine and her boyfriend were homeless.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, listen, I got this studio space. I said, there's a storm coming in another day. I said, if you need to get out of the elements, if you just need to persist, I've got a couch that you can crash on, no problem, no questions asked. And you do that shit because that's the right thing to do.
Right. Absolutely. No, that's it. Because and we don't need a gun against our heads to do that. And I'm not saying that somebody's coming in my house physically, and that's always the argument that the Bernie Sanders supporters are going to say, nobody's really coming in here. But no, at the end of the day, at the end of the fucking day, if I don't pay my taxes.
Yep. And Ed and Elaine Brown, the Browns here in New Hampshire.
I remember.
I mean, I remember when Ed and Elaine Brown got imprisoned for tax evasion.
I remember. I remember watching that whole thing, and that's how I learned about taxes. You know that? I was a little kid when that shit was happening.
Yeah, and I mean, shit. I was even littler than you.
Yeah.
You're right. Right, but
I mean, I was old enough to remember it and just hear my parents like talk about it and all that shit. And like, I don't. I'm thinking of the same people, right? They were like national news, and they were evading the taxes in their house, and they were holding it up, and
they booby trapped the shit out of their property too.
New Hampshire, live free or fucking die.
Right. I'll say Ed Brown did have a few screws loose, but I'll tell you, he had all the right reasons for not paying them.
Absolutely. There's no law saying he has to pay them shit.
Right. It wasn't even just that. It was, I mean, I see what you guys are using the money for. You're bombing people halfway across the earth that I've never met, that I have no problem with at all. You're spending money to do that? No, I think I'll keep my fucking money because
thank you very much.
Right. That's not shit I support.
Right.
And my issue's always been the war. And for Ed Brown, that was a massive thing. He said, I don't want to support any of this shit. It reminds me of like Muhammad Ali. I don't have anything against no Viet Cong. Right. And, the famous line he said after that, which probably shouldn't be repeated. Don't want to get you demonetized or anything, but he's like, I don't have no problem with any Viet Cong. I know who my opposer is.
Right. That's right. Well, and I well, in the future too, if there's anything else similar to that, I know a reason why you censored, but fuck monetization, fucking assholes. They can the music coming through in the background. If they play a cover, they'll probably demonetize. Fucking dicks. Just kidding. I don't really give a shit. Either way, I guess where I was going before I went on a tangent there, I just hate YouTube sometimes. Is that whole concept that it's very real. If you don't pay your taxes, those guys came to their house with guns.
Yeah.
So if you don't pay your taxes, it's not something that you just pay your taxes. It's what you do. I'm like, okay, well, why?
Yeah.
You're a good citizen. It's what you do.
I know.
Okay, well, why?
Especially when and in my mind, they give me so many reasons to do everything in my power to not give them tax.
Right.
Just because of the absolutely inane and awful things that they spend it on. And that's
private prisons, fucking wars on drugs.
Right. It's literally,
alien spending. Fuck, man.
I mean, but any of it. I mean, should be just. It's absolutely unreal. The welfare warfare state. The domestic spying.
Keeps people crushed.
Right. You don't even need to get into conspiracy la land. You can literally just take what the Congressional Budget Office publishes, right? You can comb through it and you can say, holy shit, what they admit to is bad enough.
Yeah.
Like that. And to
me, and the thing that sucks is it's all going to that shit. These crazy billions of dollars, people in fucking hotel rooms and all kinds of shit that money's not an object for any of that shit. But meanwhile, I just lost food stamps because I made $150 too much from Social Security this year.
I know.
And now I am really kind of fucked because it's hard to pay for a kid that goes through mandarin oranges as much as my child does. It's fucking bananas. My kid loves oranges. Do you know what you're doing to my child's orange supply?
I know, better than I'm eating Pop-Tarts, but still, it's
seriously.
Right.
But, they'd rather have me feeding him fucking glycol, fucking
they'd
propylene
rather have you pumping them full of Kellogg's cereal and other
brand name fucking brand A Victory brand cigarettes,
Oh god,
fucking some Victory coffee for him, Victory fucking Kellogg's Frakes.
Oh man.
Look, my thing and this is the thing, people are like, I voted down ticket libertarians, right? But I didn't vote Jo Jorgensen.
I didn't either.
Really?
I went to go see her in Manchester, and I asked her one question. It was the last question of her rally when I went to go see her.
Really?
Very simple question, and she lost she had already not yet earned my vote prior to this, but if she had my vote before, she certainly would have lost it after her answer to my question, which really was a non-answer. But anyhow, the question was very simple. I asked, what could we, and I point at the crowd, right? What could all of us do outside of direct political involvement that can, reduce the power of the state, that can better our lives? What is one thing that we could all do out? And you know what she said?
What?
You can tell someone about my campaign. And I rolled my fucking eyes. I wanted to walk away. I was so mad.
Fucking that's bullshit.
I wanted to walk
I would
away.
say? I'd say vote at your local level.
Or not
vote
even
in your town elections.
But that my question was specifically what other than direct political action, right? My question did not have to do with political action. What could we do to build a more free society, right? This is the general idea of the question, right? And she literally says, tell people about my campaign. I rolled my eyes, and this is the most absolute bullshit answer. And then she goes on to, after she already doesn't answer my fucking question, right? She goes on to call on this other fellow. I happen to know him. His name's Elijah, and he's actually a really good dude. But he calls him up to have him say a few words. And I'm pretty sure this was pre-planned, which is why she, deflected my question and didn't answer it. But she brought him up, and he basically just says, yeah, Jo Jorgensen is the first candidate that I'm not embarrassed to tell my grandmother about. And I'm thinking, this is, again, not an answer to any of these questions.
Yeah.
Telling your family about a candidate, that's still direct political action. You're still encouraging someone to vote for someone or support someone. I'm asking you, what can I do outside of the political arena? And it's a very simple question to answer. Start a farm, start a business. Well, you know what I mean? Like literally, you could have said any of those things, right? Any of the menial things. shop at your local butcher shop, right? You know what I mean. Shop at your local gardener, or your
Right.
local co-op or something like that, right?
Anything other than fucking what
Anything
she
other
said.
than
Anything
what she said.
self-serving is just bullshit for me. It's just such
right,
fucking garbage.
Right. And I heard that, and I said, all right, I know who you are. I know what's going on, and I love Spike. Spike's a great guy. When I went to go see him in Nashua about a few days before Joe came up to Manchester, I went to go see Spike because, again, I was a Vermin Supreme delegate, right?
Yeah,
I was a delegate to the LNC.
That's who I had. That was my horse in the race, man.
I my pony in the race as well.
Yeah, my pony in the race. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. We all get it confused sometimes. I understand.
I know. Free horses, free ponies. I'm like, well, look, I'll take either as long as I can have my fucking toothbrush.
Indeed. But anyhow, Vermin was my pony in the race, and I rode him to the end. I didn't vote for anyone else. I voted for him on the final ballot, and I would not have changed my vote to Joe, because I firmly believe that he was the only candidate that had earned my support. As far as I was concerned in the general election, he was still the only candidate who had earned my support.
Yeah.
So, if I could have voted for
did you write him in?
I'm not going to answer that question.
Yeah. No, that's personal thing for me. I voted in a way that people fucking can't wrap their head around.
Yeah.
Which
I actually Vermin would have preferred that I write him in. He's of course a good friend of mine, but I didn't. I just cast blank.
He's a really amazing guy, and I think his perspectives are far beyond what other people are thinking. His ability to deconstruct, political problems with humor and the divisiveness. People are at each other's throat, and then he comes through, and people just they melt, And people, we need that, man. We need that shit.
I will never forget when I was in the beginning of, not the beginning of his campaign, but towards the middle, once I had actually formally endorsed him. I had supported him before I had formally endorsed him, and I turned a lot of heads, because a lot of people said, "Oh, former legislator, why is he endorsing a clown for president?" Right? Because this seems off, right? It seems like he's crazy, or he's gone batshit or something. No, I made a very, very deliberate choice, and I thought I explained myself very well. But Vermin is easily one of the most intelligent people I've ever met.
Yeah,
and beyond his
intelligent.
Beyond his intelligence is his ability to relate to others.
Yeah,
and that's something that people in the LP sorely lack.
Beyond yes,
sorely lack.
This is my argument so very often, man. I couldn't agree with you fucking more, man.
Listen, I've spent more time in the LP. I right? And I gotta be honest. I can't see it and not say anything. Otherwise, I'm doing them a disservice too.
Well, especially being somebody who's actually run in the LP. Like I've been voting Libertarian since, let's see, Ron Paul ran. There was a Republican. That was my first time I ever fucking registered as Republican. I wanted to fucking throw up my mouth. But I wanted Ron Paul to win that primary, right? I wanted the Ron Paul revolution to happen, and
it was not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. And I think
Republican Party.
No. I was very, very young and naive at that point in my life, right?
Yeah, and hey, listen. There's so many fucking people in the state of New Hampshire that still think that the Republican Party can ever produce a more libertarian result. They still are out there. They're still, banging their heads against the wall.
Oh no, those are the people that think fucking Donald Trump is the libertarian version. Don't even. Oh god, I want to throw up every fucking time. Like, Mr. Anti-Bump Stock. Mr. fucking, I'm not going to talk about aliens or fucking.
But it goes even deeper than that, right? It's like it's the welfare warfare state, right? The welfare warfare state rolls on. Nothing changed. It's all smoke and mirrors. It's all fake. It's quite literally performance act. It's performance art.
It absolutely is.
Right. So why not nominate someone? Why not choose someone like Vermin, who's an honest fucking performance artist?
Well,
right?
so
if you're gonna tool us like this, well, fuck you.
Why, dude? This is exactly what I was fucking saying, and this is why I didn't fucking vote for fucking George. And I honestly, I shamefully, in a lot of ways, voted for Joe Biden. I don't give a fuck. I didn't want the hey, look. At the end of the day, we're how are you going to deconstruct the fucking political machine, right? Are you going to blow it up with a fucking grenade like Donald Trump or whatever the fuck it is? Look, I agree that Vermin Supreme is the way to go, right? Because he relates to people, break things down. He meets in the middle. He's doing things that nobody else would do, right? The only reason I voted for Biden is just a last minute possible stopgap to prevent that orange motherfucker from being president for another 4 years. Now, I'm not on board with the Democrats fucking.
Oh yeah, no,
I know exactly what's going to fucking happen. First 2 years in, Kamala's going to be president, and then she's going to run another 8 years. It'll be 12 years of fucking Kamala Harris. I know what's going to happen. And I sorry, I didn't mean to go on a rant, but they make me angry too, right? But I do think this happened in Maine. Ranked choice voting happened because of Democrats, not because of Republicans, and I'll give them that win. Yeah, the same way I'll give Republicans the hemp win.
So I hate to say this, and I hate to burst your bubble. Unfortunately, ranked choice voting is not a solution.
I don't think it is either, but I think it's a step in the right direction.
I don't even think it's a step in the right direction. I've done I've done some serious mathematical analysis on ranked choice voting and where it's been used. The way
you think it'll scramble up the vote, right? That's your thought.
No, not even. It just literally reassigns votes. That's all it does. Votes for third party candidates where you choose your second choice option. Once your first choice option, it makes it so that voting for your first choice option, like your third party first choice option, is actually less advantageous than voting for them, say, second place, because if they get more second place votes,
unless you don't write in those other ones,
right? So or not, yeah.
And so for grassroots, it's more advantageous because those people can go. I'm going to vote for one person and not give any other options, and then the other people who do vote that secondary person, you know what I mean? So there's a way you can rig ranked choice voting in a grassroots movement. And you can use the algorithm against it.
A perfect example of an election that should not have occurred or should have elected someone else in any other form of election, Burlington, Vermont. So the first year, or was it the first year? It was either the first year or after a few years after they had enacted ranked choice voting. They had a very, very contested three-way race. Believe it or not, the progressive candidate, the third party candidate, actually won the race, but should not have actually won. And I know this sounds weird. However, the candidate who should have actually won was the Democrat. The Democrat in any other systems of elections would have had the it's a particular mathematical theorem, but would have had what the hell's the name of the law? Of course, I blank on the name of the law. It's some guy's name, but anyhow, he would have had the actual majority, the true majority, and the progressive candidate would have come in second, and then the Republican would have come in third. Instead, because of ranked choice voting and the way that votes are reassigned, the progressive candidate won because they had more second choice votes from the Republican candidate that was dropped first, because the Republicans voted in a way that didn't break down accurately. There were so many exhausted ballots that essentially all of these Republican voters, or not all of them, but something like 80% of them, were effectively disenfranchised on the second ballot because they only selected the Republican, not selecting a second choice.
But so like that's one example in the first time ever that has not helped out the major party system. I think maybe it's a win. You know,
it's not really though, because if the intent of a voting system is to achieve the best, or not the best result, but the best possible result favored by the most possible people, right? That particular system is not going to achieve that as easily as, say, a system like score voting or even approval voting. Voting is
you're saying at multiple systems, like people are like, oh, well, it might be the third or the second, or they might be its first choice, and they compile all that in, and then because that progressive showed up at all anywhere on their list, is why they ended up that one part, that first person. From what I understood from the research that I read and the Harvard study that was done on that, I'll try to fucking put the link in the. I always forget to do this every single time. Put the link in the thing.
in the description.
There is a Harvard study that basically said the reason why that person, and I know what you're talking about specifically, is that progressive candidate won because there was more people on more brackets, and they were just writing that person in because it was an option to put them in. But what they didn't analyze is that because if that person shows up at all on the list, whether it's first, second, or third, if they show up as a majority of the vote, it's going to rise up the ladder and they're going to end up that position.
Sure.
But
I mean,
I guess what I'm getting at to I won't keep going. What I mean is that they would have just because of that system in which everybody's voting for that person's just getting compiled into the system anyway. That person's coming up first. And at the same time, each one of those people would have considered voting for that person. Maybe they're not the first on the list. Maybe they're the eighth on their list. Maybe they just wrote it in because they didn't know what the fuck they were doing and wandered into a ballot.
Straight. A lot of voters end up in the booth, right, casting a vote.
But how many times does that happen in favor of the major parties? I guess is what I'm saying. Is it not the other way for the other guys?
Well, no, it's actually fairly often that ends up working in their favor because the larger parties rely on uninformed voters broadly. I mean, like they rely on uninformed voters to basically just go down and select all of the red guys.
Right, they just that's it.
Right.
They down ballot the whole fucking ticket. I'm saying is,
more or less,
doesn't that give them the same advantage in this circumstance that the independent gained? It was not fair, but I mean, then it's not fair ever.
Sure. I mean, the problem is we now have data, especially with Maine, right? We now have data on elections that are coming out with ranked choice voting, and we can show you, or we can show just anyone that wants to look. That ranked choice voting is essentially
on this too, you know.
Yeah, ranked choice voting is essentially just reassigning votes from third-party candidates to whichever major party candidate that presumably they would have voted for otherwise if they hadn't first cast for a first choice vote for a third party candidate.
Aren't they supposed to, doesn't that person have to be first on their list?
Yes, but casting
in Maine, at least, it wasn't that way in Vermont. But I'm saying in Maine now it's supposed to be that way because of the situation in Vermont. That's what I was to understand, at least.
Yeah, in Maine, they tried to design the system to be a little bit more fluid because in Maine they still have multi-member like house districts in Maine, kind of like New Hampshire, where we have some multi-member house districts. So they needed to use a combination of two different systems. They needed to use both instant runoff for like single winner elections.
Yeah, right.
And they needed to use another type of voting. I forget exactly. It's
right because they have two congressional districts in there.
Yeah, but they select those individually. Those are single winner districts, so that's not quite what I'm talking about. But they But they do have in their state House of Representatives, they do have multi-member legislative districts. So they still do occasionally have to have elections that are not quite like actual ranked choice voting. They're like a hybrid. They're actually more like approval voting, which is actually what I support and what I like. It's not so much that approval voting is the best. In fact, score voting is probably the gold standard in terms of better systems of voting using this tool. But score voting is difficult. Score voting is difficult for a lot of people to understand, and unfortunately, the average voter is probably not going to get it.
No, they're not going to read about it. That's for sure.
I would.
They don't read the terms and conditions on their iPhone, so
I know.
Let alone their fucking constitution.
Oh shit! I've got 6% battery on my phone. No, I need to find a way to charge it. But actually, we've been on for
a while. I think we've got a good amount of stuff here. Well, let's keep you on until you're almost dead, and then we'll. But no, seriously, I think that it's been. No, your battery guy, don't let him die. Is there an EMT over there?
Actually, hold on. I can extend this a little bit by getting a charger from the other room. The band is on break right now.
Oh, so sweet.
I can even. Yeah, but it was good talking with you, man. So
I think it's been a good back and forth conversation. I know we did a lot. It was really music heavy at the beginning.
Yeah,
and for our listeners who aren't like heavy into music, like discussion, we were talking about scales and stuff. It might be a little bit more difficult, but I think it's good because we haven't done a episode where we talked a lot about music, and I've wanted to because we've done episodes with musicians and then we went into other discussions outside of music, so it was really good having this being the fifth or sixth musician on the show that we actually got into music this time, which is something was really nice. A little bit more than we have before.
I'm glad I could provide something that was like different, because I
Yeah.
mean, my life in a big way has been very political, right?
Yeah.
But in my private life, in like what I enjoy to do, it's much more about music. And I have opinions, right? Like last night, even before this whole conversation, I kind of alluded to a thing. I spent like last night, like all night, I spent my time researching and writing. So just last week, I guess there was a group of like Trump humpers who decided to go up to the State House. And I'm sorry, I know that's probably
I call them
offensive.
Trump-publicans.
Yeah, Trump-publicans, whatever you want to call them. But there were a bunch of people very much conservative leaning. Whether or not they were Trump humpers, I don't actually really know, but I can kind of infer. They went to the State House in Concord and they signed a document that they called a new Declaration of Independence. And
Jesus Christ.
now, okay, I have supported secession of New Hampshire, peaceful secession of New Hampshire for years. I supported it in 2014, 2015, before I ran for state rep, supported it all while I was a state rep, even talked about it door to door with some people, right? You know what I mean? When I was running as a Republican, right?
Yeah.
Because I felt very strongly that this was a good pragmatic measure, a harm reduction measure, getting out of the federal union, because we literally, and again, war is my biggest issue. I am so goddamn anti-war. It's not even funny. It's my biggest issue. I don't want to have my money robbed from me and spent to kill people.
I agree, right? But at this point, we are the infidels now. We're on that list. New Hampshire is the United States. Even if we secede at this point, the rest of the world looks at us still.
I know.
That state.
It's horrible. But the thing is,
one of the oldest states in the in the country. So I just don't know. I would. Oh man, we'd be so fucked if we get attacked.
I know. I just getting back into it. So these people up at the State House, they sign this new document, this new Declaration of Independence, right? And I've got to shut that door. Hold on, my bad.
Yeah, no worries.
Crap. But anyhow, so they sign this new Declaration of Independence. And I read it, and I came to the conclusion, and I've supported secession for years, right, as a pragmatic harm reduction measure. And I read this document, this new Declaration of Independence, and I did not anywhere in it see a justification for exiting the federal union. I couldn't even believe it. Yep, nope, nowhere.
They didn't have secession at all.
They didn't. Nope. They didn't even mention the federal Congress. Or hardly mention the federal Congress, and hardly mention the federal executive. Right? Hardly. They focused instead on these two things: Governor Sununu's allegedly unconstitutional executive orders. Right? And they allege that they're unconstitutional because they violate due process of law, which there are internal contradictions in the document itself concerning the due process of law. They literally cite the legislature's acts that create the emergency powers, which, by the way, that's due process of law under the legislature.
Right, exactly.
They literally cite the acts of the legislature that give the governor these emergency powers, and they say it's violating due process of law. If I'm looking at that in a court of law, and I would laugh at them. I would laugh at them.
So those guys are the reason why secession's never going to happen, though, right?
Exactly. And it made me so fucking mad, so irrationally mad, that I went last night. I did about 6 hours of research and about 2 hours of writing, and I mean it. I did like deep legislative research on the history of the United States Congress and acts that it had passed. Specifically in about the last 120 years.
Texas has tried to secede fucking a bunch of times, right?
Yeah, well, no, not many times. They tried once. The case of
no,
they did try once, but they did not succeed. And the case Texas v. White was the landmark case where it was kind of
So is there another state that's tried to secede a bunch of times? Then I'm not thinking. I could have swore there was a state that tried to.
Hawaii has a secession movement, and Vermont has a secession movement as well, but Vermont's is kind of dead right now.
Yeah, I remember that one.
But I don't.
So no, there's no other states that, like, historically. I'm talking about.
No, not. Texas is the one where we actually have Supreme Court precedent concerning its status.
Right, I remember that. Yeah, the one that happened more recently, though, right?
No. Texas v. White is a pretty old case. That's
Well, in the
1800s,
last 100 years.
No,
Okay.
over 100 years. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, Texas v. White was kind of the last court case, in I believe it was Reconstruction era, where the question of Texas's ascent to the federal union was basically, some people were saying, did Texas ever really ascend to the federal union? And the Supreme Court basically said yes. During the presidency of James Polk, Texas was admitted to the union lawfully as a state. And that pretty much settled the question as to whether or not Texas was, in a weird kind of legal gray area.
Huh. I had no idea. I really had no idea about this stuff. This is fascinating.
I've studied a lot of the history of different states' movements, but specifically in New Hampshire, we've never really had a strong secessionist movement. We've had one that I've been a part of for as long as I've known it's been around. But mainly, again, my support for that is as a pragmatic harm reduction measure. I just don't want to support the goddamn federal government anymore. I've had enough. I have been, for me, long past due, right? And when I see these conservatives who are going up to Concord, right, and signing this new Declaration of Independence that, quite frankly, didn't even address the concerns. It focused more on alleged electoral fraud, right? Which, again, there's not a single fucking elections administrator in New Hampshire that alleges that there was any fraud, right? And not only that, also the governor's orders, which you can disagree with them as much as you want, which I have certainly disagreed with some of them, and even have posted to that effect, right? You can disagree with them while still recognizing that it's probably, it's certainly underneath or pursuant to acts of the legislature that it was done under, even if you disagree with it, right? But the claims that these people are making in this document are essentially that they're usurpations of the state constitution. They didn't even mention the federal government or its absolute crimes, like none of that.
It's a big eye roll for me. Those guys are
it was a massive eye roll. So you know what I did last night? 6 hours of research, doing my due diligence, researching old federal laws that, in my opinion, have grossly violated the Constitution for over 100 years now, some of them, right? I wrote last night a draft resolution, a Declaration of Independence, one that I think that I could actually stand behind, because in the age of the Trump humpers, it's a very touchy subject, because now all of a sudden it's become politically charged, left and right. I've supported this concept for, again, years, and now these Johnny-come-latelys are going to come and tell us that we need to secede because we didn't like who won the election. Are you kidding me? That is the weakest bullshit I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, same.
It's
fucking bullshit.
It's so fucking weak. And then I come out, and in my preamble, I give a exhaustive list of all of the federal laws that I can name since about 1900 that have been absolutely criminal acts. I mean, acts that have straight robbed people, acts that have deprived people of the ability to defend themselves, acts that have forced people to register their homes and addresses so that they could be deported and moved. Like the Alien Registration Act of 1940 that interned the Japanese. Things like this. By the way, that law is still on the books.
Yeah,
that was never ruled unconstitutional. The federal government apologized for it, even paid reparations, but yet the law remains on the books. What a slap in the face.
Yeah, it's still there.
So you're right. So it's shit like that. It's shit like that I haven't forgotten. That's my whole time. That's been my impetus for this. Where the fuck are you guys?
Yeah.
Where the hell are you guys on this? I've been seeing this shit go on for years of my life, and I'm only 24.
A lot of these people, the same people who fucking, that used to watch The Apprentice and shit, and that's where they got their fucking rocks off to this whole concept. Like, I just think that the thing is rooted in a lot of, like you said, it's showmanship. It's the show monkey thing. Fucking
it's just a song and dance.
It's a big mess for anybody who's stuck kind of in the middle. It's like this big gray area where all the rest of us live. You know what I mean? It's just the rest of.
I know. I wouldn't say I'm in the middle. I definitely am very opinionated. However, it's not so much. It's just.
I don't mean politically. I mean just kind of.
I feel like the the public discourse is just not where I am at all. Not even fucking close. I just, the things that I care about, other people just do not seem to care about.
Right.
That's the easiest way that I can put it. I care that the government robs me absolutely, just absolutely sodomizes me to pay for killing people in far away and distant lands, people I've never met, people I have no quarrels with whatsoever. But yet I'm robbed to pay for this. That's just the tip of the iceberg, right? There's so many more things beyond that, but that's the one that really pisses me off. That's the one that really gets to me.
Me too. And I mean, dude.
And yet I see people who go about their day. They pay the same, and they are seemingly unworried by this. It doesn't.
I know. It sucks because it's like I fucking reluctantly voted for fuck bag, right? But
yeah,
and the thing
that's one of the reasons why I
chaps my ass, right? But this is what chaps my ass about the whole fucking thing is that like I voted for fucking that guy in the primary, right? I was very much a supporter of Yang, and not so much because I got behind everything he said. I did get behind a lot of things he said, like Brazilian jiu-jitsu for cops, or fucking just common sense shit that's just easy fucking problem solution. And everybody's just asleep at the fucking wheel. My thing is really money. Fucking money, dude. I'm sorry. Robots are gonna take over, and anybody who thinks that shit ain't gonna happen,
I don't think
experience the fucking pandemic because it literally just happened in front of everybody's eyes.
I don't think the government should issue money. So I'm very much.
Oh, you don't think that they can take our money, but they shouldn't pay us it back?
No, I don't think that they should take or issue money. I don't think that government should.
Well, it's kind of too late for that, right? They kind of already fucking opened that bag of worms by fucking taking our money.
I'm
well why don't they, fuck you, pay me kind of thing? Because in my opinion, this is the individualism in me, is I don't give a fuck. I want my fucking money back. I want my fucking ankle to be taken care of for the fucking money I gave those.
I guess
bag.
I guess for me, no, it's all good, and I entirely understand from whence you come.
People die from this. I saw one of my best friends, fucking uncles, shot himself in the heart. He just couldn't get the fucking help, the disability that he needed. The guy was disabled. The guy was suffering in ways that they couldn't even imagine, and he shot himself in the heart, not in the head, in the fucking heart, man. Like that shit is fucking unacceptable. It is so beyond what's acceptable. It's disgusting. And I'm right there with you. They shouldn't be taking our money at all, right?
Yeah.
But I'm okay with taking that money back and plunging it into small businesses and bakeries and the things that people need,
Right. The counter economics, I'm entirely in support of that. Any way to take what they have to
all my ponies.
Yeah. Well, yeah, right. Take what they have to offer and try to turn it into something productive, right?
Yes.
To turn it into something better, or something that's not perpetuating the
their
violence
fucking
in the state.
Bullshit. Yeah.
Right. And I get that, and that's one of the reasons why the dollars that I get, I can't wait to get rid of them. I cannot wait to get rid of my FRNs, because the second I spend or get rid of those FRNs, I feel a little bit more clean. You know what I mean? That's why I tried, like even today. I was hanging out just before, we were initially scheduled to have the call. I was hanging out with my buddy Steven, and I paid him for some food that he brought to me with crypto, just simple stuff like that. Is that we're no longer among ourselves. We're not exchanging dollars. It has no value to me.
There's notes to be had.
Someone the other day tried to incentivize me to do something. He said, "Hey, can I pay you to do this?" And I said, "No, your money's no good to me."
Yeah.
Right? And he didn't. At first he was like, he didn't.
No good to anyone.
Understand. Right. He didn't understand. And I was like, "Yeah, it's just not good to me anymore. I'm sorry, I just won't take it." And he's like, "Oh, but it's it's just money." And I'm thinking like, well, again, it's not money I want to take. Sorry, man. And I, it was just,
silver.
Was a weird, well, no, not even silver. It was just, I just don't want to take that.
I know.
It's like, I took silver for a guitar recently.
That's what I was just saying, man.
believe it or not, I would have preferred in that moment. I would have preferred cash because I was going to immediately use that cash to buy another guitar.
Yeah.
However, I can float it, right? You know, I ended up still placing the pre-order on the guitar, and it's going to be a beautiful freaking guitar when I get it in.
That's awesome.
But yeah, you know, like it's stuff like that.
No,
I'm immediately
you're right,
trying to
man.
get rid of
I
the
agree
Fed
with you.
coins, man.
Same thing. Just fucking get rid of it. Money
Yeah.
is, and I
It's a
mean this
tool.
in
It's a
all,
tool, first
not
and
just.
foremost.
This can be expanded past that into like the whole spiritualism. Fucking, it's temporary shit. Everything.
Yep.
This house I live in, the whole fucking thing is temporary. Literally.
It could be gone tomorrow. Very quick. Very easy.
I was just talking about this in the car on the way back from the dispensary today. We could get hit with a little asteroid rock fucking at hundreds of thousands of miles an hour, unfathomable speeds, and they'll just fucking knock our fucking lives right to nothing. And it, you know, people like seriously, they don't even, everybody's like all worried about getting hit by a fucking rock. What if the fucking moon gets hit by a rock? You know how much fucking worse that would be for everyone on this planet? We would all burn alive. It's horrible. Literally, just book out there about that. It's fucking crazy.
Just the moon being out of out of orbit would drastically affect the tides. It would drastically affect the tides, drastically affect just the rain, you know, the water cycle, rain cycle. People don't understand how fragile what we have is, right?
Yeah. Spaceship Earth. This fucking little bubble with a rock inside of it, basically. Fucking blasting through space. And not in a circle, in a fucking spiral. And people are like, oh, it's a big circle. It's like, no, it's a fucking spiral moving through space. People don't even get it. They don't understand. And then they want to talk to me about really basic shit that's just like, no, man, basic fundamental economics says no. You know, and sometimes basic science says no. Did you go to school?
Right.
Did you take the time to learn anything on your own?
And then you're sitting there on the internet and you're looking at someone who's posting about how the Earth is supposedly 6,000 years old and shit. You know what I mean?
Smash my head on the fucking wall as hard as I goddamn can.
Or how the Earth is flat. You know, and it's like my father circumnavigated the globe. You know what I mean? And that's a great thing. You know that's a great thing to do.
When they say shit like that, they discount what he did, and that's what makes me fucking angry.
I know.
They discount the work that the scientists have done, the fucking ice cores. Oh, fuck, dude.
And it's no longer a big feat to circumnavigate the globe. People have been now doing this via plane and all other ways for a long time. But my father had the fortune to do it on an actual ship and to actually have to plot the charts, to navigate celestially, right? To actually have to do it. And I mean, you have to really have a full understanding of not only the Earth itself, but where the Earth is and everything in relation to the Earth.
Right.
And it just, I know, I understand. I get the frustration, man.
That's the thing that's going to put you in your position in the galaxy too, right? Somebody who's done navigation, so somebody who's seen the world for what it is, and they look up to the sky and they see the stars constantly.
Man, there's so much more.
There's so much that we're not getting because we're so wrapped up in, and of course we gotta like I live too much in the exterior, right? And my counselor, I talked to her, and she says the best thing you can do is try to focus on your small world, your bubbles. And she's right in a lot of ways, because I get too caught up in the externalities are outside of my control. But God damn it, I can't stop thinking about those things.
I have a hard time as well. Because it's like I've been recently, as of late, I've been trying to get back more into myself, trying to do more music, trying to do more things that I enjoy, because I don't really want to spend my time doing things like I did last night, spending 6 hours looking at legislation that, I have.
It becomes an obsessive part of you that I know that feeling, man.
I don't want to do it. But when I get so angered by something that I see, right? Like, again, bringing it back, but I see people who I feel like are just, they feel like they can sense a problem, right? They can sense a problem. They have absolutely no idea what the problem is or what they can, remotely do about it. But yet they still try to throw something at the wall. And even if that idea might be
good in other ways, right, or have merits, just they package it with all of this absolutely inane bullshit that
Yeah.
it feels like they've
I
just
think it
become.
comes down to just basic, what's the word? Common sense. It really just
Right.
comes down to basic common, or the ability to really, the people who retweet shit or repost stuff without looking into it first.
Mhm.
You know, a little bit of research goes a long way, and nobody wants to do that little bit of research. Nobody wants to look through the terms and conditions on their iPhone before they click onto it. Like that episode of fucking
Yeah,
South Park.
same with the terms and conditions of Facebook, Twitter, and all the rest.
All of it. But
Yeah.
these are the people that are like constitutionalists. It's like, really? You read through your you read through your you read through all of it?
Did you read through the terms of service of Parler?
Yeah, right. But you're gonna tell me you read the fucking Constitution. The fuck out of here, people.
Yeah, before I ran for state representative, I've never been a constitutionalist in my life, never claimed to be.
Yeah.
Even when I was running as a Republican, I said, there's some really, really good ideas in the state constitution here, right? And I read it and I saw the good ideas and I saw the parts that kind of gave me pause, and I'm thinking, oh, those are some powers that I really wouldn't want a government to have. Fundamentally, I'm an anarchist, right? I don't believe in the legitimacy of any government anywhere.
Centralized bullshit.
I believe that I am self-governing and that ultimately I control my own life and I am the captain of my own ship, the master of my own destiny, right? I don't believe that anyone else is going to make those decisions for me. So fundamentally, that's where I come from. But when I was running for the legislature, hey, you doing okay? Yeah, I'm doing all right. I'm on a call, my dude. It's all good. No, you're doing fine. I'm in the back corner. Sorry about this, Mark.
No worries, man. You're good.
My the Jam Space dad Tyrell is.
Oh yeah, here the abstract transmission. It's kind of a laid back feel. We're in the give a fuck department.
All
we
right,
don't.
Cool. Yeah, we'll do.
We don't.
All right.
Full stop.
But anyhow, when I was running for the job of state rep, right, I very, very deliberately went and did a study of the Constitution, right? Not only the Constitution, its history, the state Constitution, the federal Constitution to an extent, which I had already known, right? But I did an extensive study of specifically the New Hampshire Constitution, right? Because I wanted to learn more about it. I wanted to know more about not only the history of, the original provisions of the Constitution, but the amendments to it over the years, which it has been amended a number of times, right?
Oh, for the listeners out there, our state motto is live free or die, by the way, if you didn't know. Some people outside of the country, some people inside the country that think we're Boston. Like, where is that? People, when I was in Samsung, they're like, New Hampshire, where's that, Boston? Like, yeah, you fuck off. New Hampshire is its own goddamn state, okay? We don't have to wear helmets here if we don't want.
We are our own people. We have no seatbelt laws, no helmet laws, and we are like hobbits with guns.
Yeah, right. We'll live free or die about everything except for fucking cannabis. The one thing that the rest of our neighbors have their shit together on, and we can't seem to manage that. Thank you, Chris.
Even the New Hampshire Supreme Court just recognized the religious right to use psilocybin, right? Even the New Hampshire Supreme Court. Which was great.
I mean, great, but what the fuck?
The reason why they decided that, and it was actually in large part due to the conservatives on the state Supreme Court, believe it or not, but it was because of the religious argument that was used.
Yeah.
Because New Hampshire's Constitution actually has very, very strong protections for religious activities.
Yeah.
And using that argument was a fantastic argument. I got to give credit where it is due to the people who fought that case.
That's awesome.
Very, very, very well litigated. But anyhow, that was a cool little development here. Anyhow, but
I think that's great. I mean, and I think
it'll keep people out of jail. Hopefully, that's
fucking. It's absurd that I mean, I should be able to put whatever the hell I want in my body. I mean, if the president can try to put hydroxychloroquine into his body and all kinds of crazy shit, I should be able to too. Fuck him, man.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, President Donald J. Trump can do whatever the goddamn wants, man.
If I want to drink cyanide and kill myself, I should be able to do it. If I want to, drop lysergic acid diethylamide and have a really great night, I should be able to do it. Yep. You know what I mean? Like,
I agree.
And
Nobody. It's my body. My body, my
Yeah,
choice.
my body, my choice. The
God
very
damn it.
cliche line.
No, it applies to all facets. So that's just women, like fucking the whole spectrum. Like I am not at all for somebody stepping in and deciding what I can and can't do with my life or my body. And the same thing for other people. I mean, it's those things that government should stay the fuck out of. And although people are, well, how will we build our roads?
And that's
how
like,
will we have a fire department?
It's like, that's your objection for real?
Yep,
I mean, come on,
argument.
I'm thinking about flying cars and you're worried about the roads still?
Yeah. No, I'm seriously, we're talking about fucking, and this is, oh man, back to the economics thing before we get back into aliens, before we let you go. Because I gotta go back to the aliens thing, because you don't have a wall screen, and I do want you to see a few things that are on the wall screen thing, because it's gonna check back into what I'm saying, and I think it's going to be eye-opening a little bit for you, only to see from a purely a speculative point of saying, look what the fucking crazy federal government's doing now. But hold on, I'll get back to that. What were we talking about right before that? Money, economics. Economically, people are always like, billionaires, trash, garbage, bad. No, in my opinion, I don't believe that. Actually, I don't have anything against.
I think individuals are individuals. The amount.
I think it's shitty when the government props things up, like the dairy industry.
When the game is being rigged, right? When
there shouldn't be a game.
Scales, when the scales are pre-weighted, right? Yeah. When the scales are pre-weighted and the game's being rigged, then that's what I have an issue with. I don't have an issue with people being successful, making money. I mean, as much as
Elon Musk is a good example of that when we talk about voluntarism. The man is putting fucking satellites in the sky to give the whole world free internet, to break all of the media chains and control. That will destroy media, will destroy a lot of things. And we do need to adapt to the fact that there's going to be a lot of misinformation spread around here and there and everywhere, because the media eventually will be all of us talking to each other. And that will be the media. The news is going to be fucking gone soon. It's something that will.
I don't think it's going to be gone. I think
it'll change. It'll adapt.
I think
the
propaganda outlets. I mean, already we've
nobody watches cable TV. Nobody has a cable TV anymore. Like, sure, some people do, but nobody does.
Already we've seen the strategy shift, though, right? And it's on both sides, right? We still have pundits on social media and around who distance themselves from the quote unquote mainstream media, right?
Yeah.
But yet they're still pushing a narrative, right? It's still very a deliberately crafted narrative designed to manipulate one's mind.
But do you think that some people are? Oh yeah, no, you're right. I'm gonna say, but don't you think that some people are trying to get in there to do their own thing on their own personal agendas? Like Andrew Yang, for example, he got squashed by the media, so his solution in the 4D Jess was to become the media. Now he's a political commentator on CNN now for a job, and now he's going to be running for mayor of New York. So it's like these things that people use as leverage to get themselves in a position. And he's a former non-politician, now is finding his way into politics. I think that people become disenfranchised in that whole gamut. But don't you think that with that shift, that how things are happening now, that people are not gonna go to those channels as much as dinosaurs die, right? As the grandparents of past die,
I don't think that they will
use CNN are gonna become more irrelevant.
Right. I don't think that the medium, right, the actual TV broadcast medium, I think the medium will change. I think the content will remain the same, right? I think that all that will happen is the psychological warfare that goes on with the information that is distributed through the media industrial complex. That psychological warfare is merely going to shift and transition to another medium, right? We're already seeing that happen.
Well, it's going to try, but it's struggling a lot right now. You can see it's like fucking Bambi on its wobbly legs. It can't really figure it out yet.
If the Donald Trump campaign tells me anything, it's not struggling at all, right?
No, whoa, hold on a second. They lost this last election, and two,
but them losing is not
Cambridge Analytica is a one-off. That whole thing with data sharing and all that stuff, that's how he won the first thing. And I don't think anybody could ever change my mind that Cambridge Analytica made him president.
I don't think that Cambridge Analytica, like I
Well,
don't.
they did, yeah, I'm not saying
No,
they made
I
him
do.
president, but
I legitimately think that Donald Trump in 2016 won that election outright, and I think that that should horrify a lot of people
a
because
lot of people didn't
I mean,
vote, and yeah,
yeah,
I'm not saying
lot,
that, but I
yeah,
think Cambridge Analytica flipped the Bernie supporters to vote for Donald Trump. I think that they flipped enough. Oh, there's I
mean,
know.
I certainly know a lot of Bernie supporters who did vote for Donald Trump because they were just so rip shit mad with Hillary.
That's not just here, man. That's all across the United States, and a lot of that had to do with the Jill Stein voters and all that stuff being shifted too. It was Cambridge Analytica and the social media apps worked in tandem to basically shift people from one stance to another stance on their own, thing. And so I guess where I'm going with this is the media thing because it's getting late. Is that the media? Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Oh no, you're fine. I think you're right that the media will suffer on the medium that it is. I don't think that the actual goal, right, of the actual purpose that the outlets like MSNBC, CNN, Fox News, pick your mainstream
But
outlet.
Here's the thing: they do not have the control anymore once they don't have the control of the internet.
Well, I mean, they don't need to control the information on the internet. They don't need to do that. They just need to be able to
I mean, they
control-
can. The way they control the information on the internet is by owning the companies who provide you with the internet. And if they don't have power over that anymore, they don't have power.
I don't think it's not
how they control advertisements
because
those things are going to disappear. They're going to be
the
outside of individualism.
They will have to be more creative with the sources of revenue. But remember, you're dealing with entities that have been propped up, right? Have been subsidized and deliberately protected by the state because they serve such a valuable purpose
for a long time. But I don't think that that's going to be the case anymore.
I think that the state will continue to prop up those businesses or manage it in such a way that if not those same businesses, they will simply shift to whatever medium
different
becomes
businesses. You're right. So
Facebook
medium, so Facebook and all.
Advantageous.
You're right.
That's essentially what we've already seen happen, right?
Yeah,
we've already seen the state basically do this, start to subsidize.
That's not the part that I'm arguing about. It's the media companies' control and the ability to continue to do that will be really kind of the contingent on whether they can do that anymore. And a lot of that has to do with media, advertising, money that's being flowed, personal data that's being sold. But those things can change when they don't have control over that. And if you put a bunch of satellites in the sky,
I think that Musk's vision for that, it's an excellent and noble goal. And I think he probably will succeed. I think it's actually a very reasonable goal. Yeah, I hope so as well. I think he will probably succeed in achieving that goal. However, I question whether or not that in and of itself is a powerful enough shift to actually diminish the influence and power of those particular media entities. And I don't think it will. I don't think that the decentralization of the provision of the internet will have an effect on the messages, right?
Look at it like on a graph of an incline, though. Like if you were to look at it on a graph, you already see what the internet has already done to those entities, and we've already seen like YouTube, and podcasts. Like the FCC can say fucking shit all if I say fuckity fuck as many times as I want with this conversation with you.
There's an excellent old adage that's very applicable, right, in this particular scenario. So the adage is I believe it's Mark Twain. I don't know if it is or isn't, but I know it's certainly that era, the 1800s.
Yeah.
He said, a lie can run halfway around the world before the truth even puts on its shoes. And in the age of information, right, where we have the internet, information is moving so much faster than it ever has before, right? We can instantly connect. I mean, we can have this discussion over Zoom instantly, right? That is that Mark Twain quote, or I believe he said it, but anyhow, that quote is so much more applicable today because of this faster frequency of exchange of information.
Right.
Actual legitimate data and evidence and whatnot is still going to struggle and is still going to have a hard time competing against psychological warfare, and sorts of deliberately crafted lies that are designed to distract, manipulate,
and achieve a desired outcome or what have you. But it's still I don't think that there's one thing that's going to solve that problem. I think it's really just going to be people having the discussion saying, hey, don't you realize you're being tooled, you're being sold
You're right.
blind?
No,
Right?
I think that it can't be one specific thing, but I think that it can certainly help our
might.
abilities to do so. It can provide us the tools
Right.
to get ourselves free from that.
Sure, and I certainly hope it does. I really do. I hope something does. I hope that something.
It's definitely rose-colored lenses for sure.
I know. I hope that something comes about and makes it such that we can compete with the people who are just slinging craziness, because man, it's tiring. It's tiring. I don't want to do it.
Here's the next step of craziness. This is where I wanted your perspective on, but I'm gonna have to wait for it a little bit probably, because you're gonna have to watch some of this wall TV stuff. I love that. What did you call it? A wall? What was it?
Wall screen.
Wall screen. No, it's great. Man. No, absolutely, wall screen for sure. That's exactly what it is too. It's great. That's totally funny you said that, because I mentioned Victory brand earlier, and I didn't.
Yeah,
I don't know how I didn't put that together.
I caught it. I caught the Victory cigarettes. The Victory coffee.
So with wall screens, I find it really funny. So basically, this is where we're at, right? I really thought, have you ever seen you have Netflix or anything like that? Do you watch?
My girlfriend has Netflix. I sometimes will watch with her some shows, but
it's an alien documentary that I'm getting at.
Okay. Yeah, the last thing I watched was Beyond the Lighted Stage, the Rush documentary on there.
Oh,
man.
It
was so good. But anyhow, I
haven't watched that yet. I didn't even know that was on there. Oh my God. All right. That's so awesome. Yeah. Thank you for that. I just watched the Through the Never Again, or whatever it was.
Sometimes I need a distraction.
There's a Metallica one on there that, sorry, the delay thing. I keep cutting you off.
But you're good.
And I was really, really good, because I'm not a huge Metallica fan, but I like Metallica a lot. But I was really blown away by that documentary. But not to get too far off, because I'll go on a tangent if you let me, I'll go on a tangent forever. That's why we call it Abstract Transmissions.
We're nearing midnight, and we've had an excellent discussion.
I know.
Since about 9:30.
This is how we're going to close it up. It's been fantastic, and I really can't thank you enough for coming on and doing this, because
no problem.
These are the type of conversations that I absolutely love. And most of the time we get to have about an hour and a half, but I prefer the longer ones, because there's a lot you can get out. And this thing brings it right back to the media, because the media has always perpetuated some sort of fear campaign.
Absolutely.
Okay? And right now and this is just not even, I think this is just understood information between the UFO communities out there, which is, I can't believe I'm using them as valid information. But right now, I mean, if you look at all of the UFO releases on the internet, you spend some time to dig in here. There's facts. There's solid, measurable evidence here. Metrics. Yeah. I can't even get the word out. But I guess what I'm saying is that with these new releases from the Pentagon, so on and so forth, these major revelations. I mean, we're not talking about one-off. The Navy pilot taking the shot of the UFO. Did you see that yet?
No, I haven't. No.
So this was flowing in between the intelligence community, and they released one Navy pilot that got a snapshot. Now there's another one floating around that they haven't released yet. That this is really, really new. But about a week ago, there was the former Israeli space defense guy said that Trump knows about aliens. He's known about them.
Yeah, I heard that report. Yeah,
there's a galactic federation. Okay, did you catch that part?
I had heard I have not seen anything to substantiate it yet, but I've heard about the
Dude,
line. Yeah.
This is a legit guy. This is a guy he's you can kind of rely on his word. I mean, from the people that would say you could rely on his word. This is another country, so I can't, I don't know the guy personally, right? But I also don't know John Brennan, the former CIA director, who has come forward with this evidence too just recently, in the last 2 days. So like these huge revelations, I think there's probably a likelihood that they are realistic, that we may be being visited by extraterrestrial. What my concern is the media's approach to it. And this is where that documentary comes in. Dr. Stephen Greer, he was a while back, he was on Rogan, and then he came out with these 2 different documentaries. And a lot of it I thought was complete crazy bullshit until it started aligning almost perfectly with the timeline that he said it was going to happen in. And now we started having all these revelations, and they said that these like major CIA people are going to come forward, and they have. And they said now there's going to be a release of a Galactic Federation. I mean, this is like a 5-year-old documentary that is calling shot for shot the shit that's happening right now. Anybody can go watch it. It's called Unacknowledged. And now we have all of these major revelations they're saying are coming forward. And the whole thing, though, is that it's not about it. What it's about is just a fear campaign. They want us to be afraid of them because they want a complete and utter dominance in space, i.e. Space Force. And that ultimately, at the end of the day, is we always want. We want their oil. We want their toys. We want their shit. We want
their resources.
It's theirs. We want it. It's ours. We're America. Fuck yeah. You know, that's what we're going to do. And that's what we've always done. And that's why they don't come in fucking bother with us, because we're still wrapped up in our own fucking really fucked up shit. And they're just waiting for us to get our shit together or kill ourselves off, according to the guy from the Israeli Space Defense. So I urge you to dig in, because as a former skeptic of this, I have been
I'll certainly
my foundation of belief.
I mean, I'll certainly look into it. But you know, I've looked into previously allegations of things like the it was alleged years ago that the SR-71 Blackbird, the plane that the
SR-71, the Blackbird from Skunk Works.
They used to use these as reconnaissance aircraft, but they were developed by, I believe, Lockheed
Martin.
Well, prior to the merger of Lockheed and Martin, but
they were part of Lockheed Skunk Works, if I remember correctly.
So, something like that. But anyhow, back in the 70s, 80s, whatever, it was alleged that this plane, which was basically, it wasn't invisible to radar, but it was a very, very low profile signature and had a very distinctive shape. And people alleged that this design and that this sort of technology was taken and was adapted from
the UFOs.
Crafts, from flying objects that had been grounded in either the United States or elsewhere around the world, that had been imported to the United States, studied and taken apart and reverse engineered to be used in military applications. Now, and again, there was actually some very, very high profile individuals who were alleging this, right? People who actually worked on the Lockheed SR-71 program, saying like, hey man, we were dealing with some shit in that program that was
the guys that came forward. I know what you're talking about.
Kind of spooky stuff. And now nothing that they dropped was like a bombshell, like, yes, it is for sure extraterrestrial, right? But it was like, these things came from far off distant lands where we had, groups of little green men that we, not little green men as in aliens, but like little uniformed soldiers that we sent in without badges and name tags to go into other countries to pick this shit up and bring it back to the United States so that we could study it and reverse engineer it. Now, if that doesn't scream crazy to you, I don't know what does. Basically, the government doesn't want anyone to know that we went out and found these objects and then brought it back to study them, right? They want to make sure that is concealed.
So now that's out of the bag, though. That's been out of the bag for a while now.
Right. And that's
the Freedom of Information Act or whatever it was.
Right. That particular deal has been out of the bag since about the late 80s, early 90s or something like that, where the people had started to come forward then saying, hey, we think that we were dealing with extraterrestrial technologies, and we don't really understand them fully, but we were told that we needed to reverse engineer them and incorporate them into these designs that we were making. And that in and of itself, right, what I can see there would lead me to believe that it's like, well, okay, well, maybe, it's like, well, maybe,
So it gets even crazier, man. there's some really fucking wild shit that I was just like, man, I sound like a guy with a tinfoil hat right now. It blows my mind. I can't believe I'm on the other side of this.
Man.
But no, it's fucking, it really rocks my foundation of what I thought I understood, or what I thought I really could believe. And I'm not saying that because I haven't tested it, and I still trust in science. I still think that we can quantify the evidence. But the fact is like, we had people, I mean, have you ever met a fighter pilot? Have you ever met somebody who's in the Air Force? Like, they're straight edge dudes. Like, they don't do anything. They don't take Tylenol. No fucking joke, you know?
Yeah.
And I just, there's something about a person when they're saying something, you can kind of read them, you know? And I'm not going to go solely off of that.
Yeah.
But the Commander Fravor thing was pretty solid. When the United States government starts coming forward with certain things, it makes me concerned, because what's their goal here? It's never they're going to give information freely. What's the angle?
What's the angle?
What's the reason why they're doing this? And if you want to start really digging in, it's not so hard to believe that they've been setting up a 65-year fear campaign against extraterrestrial green.
I mean, shit.
So when it came time,
they've enacted fear campaigns that were, you know, far more ambitious, even. You know, so it's not. Yeah, it's not
absolutely. I think you just hit the nail on the head right there. That's exactly right. They've done things that are far more ambitious than that. That's fucking.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of sad and scary to think about, but yeah, they absolutely have. I mean, the right from, like, I know this is another foreign government, not the U.S., but the U.S. does it too. But the Soviets, right? While the USSR was still a thing. I mean, the Russian Federation is more or less kind of a continuation of the same kind of idea with the, you know, forever God Emperor Putin over there. You know?
I know. Good God.
But and he's a former KGB agent himself, right? And I mean, you know,
and he's just like, bounced between prime minister and fucking president for as long as he could. He was going to keep doing it.
And for real. And I mean, in Putin's own words, there's no such thing as a former KGB agent. There's no such thing, and there's likely, it's probably just as true in the United States. There's no such thing as a former CIA agent. Doesn't exist, right?
Right.
And it's just,
you know, you just hit the nail on the head. Information is something that they release, right, on their own accord and for their own purposes and their own gain.
Yes,
everything we're saying right now is being run through fucking algorithms and scanners. You know it for a fact. And I'm not at all.
And it's whether it's true or false. It doesn't matter whether it's true or false to them. It matters only what the intent of giving that information is. Like, again, we use the information to achieve a desired goal or effect.
Right.
But
it's not free. It's never free. There's always a
it's never free. It's never free. There's always a catch. Always a catch.
And it's like, you don't even need to fucking, I mean, our information is speculative from what we've experienced. We aren't in this, but I would never want to be in this. I would never want to be in that. I would never want to be a part of that life, because the shit that you got to know and live with for the rest of your life, it's unfathomable.
I know.
I have a hard enough time existing. I don't need another layer.
I am so much more happy to just play fucking music, man.
Yeah, I know, right? Just let it go simple. The simplest explanation tends to be the correct one. Well, Occam's razor doesn't just apply in that; it applies in real life too. Just find the simple things that make you happy, and just go with that flow. Because you're more than 90% of the time, it's going to be the right decision. Just go with what you feel good about, and that's going to be kind of, I think, where we leave out. I never get to wrap up cleanly like that, but I think that's a good.
I think that's an excellent
good ending point. So you know, as always, folks, we appreciate your steady listening ears for the bullshit that we come up with. Aliens. Oh boy,
out there.
Yeah, no, we do. We have some pretty consistent listeners, and I don't know who the fuck you guys are, and I really appreciate it. I couldn't appreciate it more than anything in my fucking life, is that people actually listen and they care. And I'm sure some of that has to do with the fact that we had a best-selling author on the show recently. But I'm glad that people didn't just turn it off and that they're still listening. So
it's all right. Now you've got a second-rate politician on.
Oh no, it's gonna be good, because we got a little heat from in some of the comments with it was one of the things I said in a podcast with Mr. Finney. I got a little heat recently, but yeah, it was actually on me. Surprisingly, it wasn't even him that got the heat.
Brandon's interesting. I love him to death, man, and I loaned him a guitar. Oh yeah, he's a really, really great guy. He sometimes gets a little overzealous, gets a little bit ahead of himself.
He's passionate. He's incredibly passionate.
He's got a heart of gold.
But that's it. I mean, I think that's the thing that really is so important. And I think that you pointed it out. It's like you don't always have to agree with somebody. We had some real, I'm sure we have some solid disagreements, but we can talk about them and not fucking be butthurt about it, you know?
Right.
So we'll leave on the butthurt part.
All right, man. Well, it was good talking with you, Mark.
Thank you for coming on the show. Seriously, I can't thank you enough for another really great episode.
I can't thank you enough for the good conversation. It's a good thing to just get out of myself, not be sitting on the couch just dicking around, smoking weed or something like that. You could just talk to someone else and have a good discussion. But
that's good.
Anyhow, thank you for having me on. I'd love to talk to you again.
I appreciate it. It's not easy to always get a good, solid, easily running episode. So
we did kind of meander. We did kind of,
Oh yeah, we fucked around, but that's what happens. There's a fast forward button if people are getting bored with our endless talking about. We got into the music thing a little heavy, but hey, that's what happens. You get stoners and musicians and discordant, crazy tangent conversations. And then you don't get an ending to an episode of Abstract Transmission. So on that note, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for listening. Thank you so much to Caleb Dyer for coming on the show. Get a chance, check out his music again. That was the name of the band?
The name of the band is Big Nut. We don't actually have any social media or Facebook pages, but we're going to have an album that's going to come out probably next year. So, stay tuned.
It's all right. We're in the same boat right now, so I feel that.
Crash Stranded. It's going to be called Crash Stranded, and actually the iconography is going to have a lot of alien stuff in it, which is kind of funny.
So put that in your address books, ladies and gentlemen. Reminder, it's a year from now. Look it up. Right. We live in the digital age, so thank you all for listening. As always, abstract here, abstract there.
Abstract Transmissions.